At a serene tea table surrounded by beautiful palace gardens and blooming roses, a tense atmosphere begins to brew between two nobles. Let's call off our engagement. Will you permit me to do so? What? Her hand trembles violently in shock, the hot tea sloshing over the edge of the cup as her mind races. Don't be ridiculous. Absolutely not. I refuse to accept this. Storming off in a fury, she marches through the palace corridors, her heavy footsteps echoing with resentment. I'm the eldest daughter of the Duke, Capella Axonon. My fiancé is the second prince of Oberon. I can't believe he asked me to break off our engagement. As the daughter of the Axonon family, one of the two great dukes, and as a woman, this is unacceptable. Besides, what would my father say if I told him? No, I'm sure the Reaper Duke would be completely indifferent in a situation like this. You know. Why are you crying? You poor thing. What's wrong? That? Lord Oberon? It will be all right, my beloved Capella. Why don't you try talking to His Highness again? I think His Highness may have misjudged the situation, right? Is that so? Yes, you're right. Thanks, Yuno. I'll try talking to him again. As expected of my best friend. That's right, I can do this. There's no way the engagement would be called off. That's why I'm sure. Lord Oberon? I would like to speak to you again. Lord Oberon? Please excuse me. Ready to go. Please provide the text you'd like me to read. Lord Oberon? It can't be. Capella-sama? No, I didn't. I wouldn't. Guards. Guards? Capella-sama? His Highness Oberon? No, I didn't. Oh. Whispers erupt among the staff as she is dragged away under the heavy, suspicious glares of the guards. Suddenly, a hooded figure commands the guards to stop, catching Capella completely off guard. Yuno? Don't move. Yuno. Yuno slowly turns her head, looking back at her friend with a cold, mocking gaze, revealing her betrayal. Huh? Yuno? Yuno! For the iniquity of killing my son, Oberon, Capella Axonon will be beheaded. Keep her in prison until the day of her execution. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. Father. Father, please help me. It wasn't me. I've done nothing. It seems like my father has no regard for me until the end. My father didn't have any interest in me when I was little. It was the same when I was little. Never once did he ever smile at me. That's how my father is. The Reaper Duke, Corvus Axonon. Father, how could I defend myself? There's no way he would ever help me. This is the last conversation you're ever going to have with your father. Father, I really didn't do this. You have to believe me. Even though his daughter is about to die, he won't even care to show any remorse. Standing helplessly on the platform, she watches his retreating figure, her heart hardening with profound betrayal. Father! As I thought, my father hates me. The cold, sharp blade of the guillotine glints under the blood-red sky, ready to drop. As she is forced down onto the wooden block, tears stream down her face, but a twisted, hollow smile begins to spread across her lips. He never loved me. I want to take revenge on my father. Ah, thank you, Yuno. The only one who's on my side. The soft chirping of a bluebird drifts through the open window of a peaceful nursery. This is... what the heck? Gasp. Father? He's so young. Doesn't he look too cool, considering he's my father? I mean, what caused me to turn into a baby? He leans over the crib, staring down at me with an unreadable, intense gaze. His black-gloved hand slowly reaches down towards my face, causing me to flinch in fear. What? Just because you are handsome when you're young, you won't stop being my enemy. Chomp? You idiot, I thought he'd say, but instead his inner thoughts echo, my Capella, my precious angel. Huh? I wanted you to be a boy. If only you weren't born. That's what his mouth says, but his mind is screaming, she's very cute, seriously adorable. She's so soft. Even her smell is lovely. I'm hearing something I shouldn't be able to hear. I'm hearing things that I shouldn't be able to hear. Outwardly, he mutters, if only you were born as a male. But inside, he's totally doting. She's very cute, seriously adorable. She's so soft. Even her smell is lovely. On the windowsill, the little blue bird tilts its head, watching the bizarre scene unfold. He stands silently by the crib, gazing down at his newborn daughter under the shimmering morning light. The blue bird stays perched on the edge of the window, its beady red eyes focused on the cradle. You're nothing more than a tool for a political marriage. Yet he thinks, I'm never going to be able to marry her off, am I? Ah, sir. Humph, says his mouth as he storms out, but his heart sighs, I wanted to spend more time with my Capella. The maid rushes in, crying, Lady Capella, are you okay? Has he done anything to you? Huh? Her voice is normal? That's impossible, because my father, he was cold, wasn't he? Is it possible that I'm being deceived? I will take my revenge. I don't know what happened, but I was able to start my life over. To my cold-hearted father, I'll show you just what I'm capable of. Yuno is the only one on my side. I will live this life for the sake of getting revenge. First off, I need to make sure I don't get executed. Coo, I can finally walk. My revenge starts now. Ha ha ha. Capella, 1 year and 2 months old. If the Axanon family were to fall, even my father would be sad. I'll do my best to interfere in his work. Daddy, maybe I should call him what I think he'd hate the most. He freezes in sheer disbelief, his stoic face cracking for the very first time. Tata? Tata? What? This cute little angel? Her first word was Papa? I heard that she walked, but I didn't hear any reports of her talking. You will get in the way, he tells me coldly, but inside he screams, I'm not ready to leave yet. Without another word, he shuts the heavy doors right in my face. I need to work harder to protect this angel. I won't sleep tonight. It backfired completely. He was actually motivated. Capella, 3 years old. Oh dear, what are you so passionately drawing? This is a curse that brings misfortune. I saw it in the mansion's library in my previous life. If someone keeps this pattern under their pillow, I heard that they will have terrible nightmares. I can't even read half of the ancient languages, but maybe that's what it means. This way, while my father is asleep, it's done. It seems you and that bird have become quite good friends. I named her Ruri. Clasping the curse drawing tightly in my tiny hand, I set off to execute my master plan. And she started staying by my side. In my previous life, I don't remember having a bird like this in our house, but a single bird won't get in the way of my revenge. Now all I have to do is wait for tonight. I hate that guy. I am going to take him out. With my own hands. Sneaking quietly through the dimly lit halls, she clutches a silver fork, ready to strike her sleeping enemy. Coo. Peering through the cracked door, she eagerly watches her father find the paper under his pillow. Coo ha 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 ha. Huh? Instead of a terrifying nightmare, a booming, ecstatic laugh echoes through his chambers, leaving her completely stunned. Is this a portrait of me? I guess she tried to give it to me secretly because she was too embarrassed. Now what should I get her as a thank you gift? Huh? Status, honor, and a desirable man should be a given. But before that, let's frame this picture. This painting could become a national treasure of this country, a frame of pure gold, or... Capella cowers as his intense, doting aura threatens to overwhelm her. I don't want him to be so over the top. More than anything, the way he laughs scares me. Terrified, she runs away, leaving her bonnet behind in her haste. I'm off. 2 years pass, and at 5 years old, Capella stares intently at her father as he prepares to depart. What is it? She doesn't want me to leave, does she? No, why would I want that? Because I want to take revenge on you. Capella also wants to ride the horse. Huh, absolutely not. Struck by her sheer cuteness, the Duke struggles to maintain his cold facade. Fortunately, I have some spare time. I really don't want to do this, but it can't be helped. This is also a part of your education, he says coldly, though his inner thoughts scream, I also want to ride with Capella. Coo. It's too easy. Wow! Together, they gallop across the vast, rolling green fields under a brilliant blue sky. As the horse strides smoothly along the pathway, the breeze rushes past them, carrying away all their worries. Come to think of it, it's been a while since I rode a horse. Your fiancé has been chosen. Hearing those sudden words, her heart sinks as her mind races in panic. His Highness Oberon Quasar. That's right, His Royal Highness the Second Prince, Oberon Quasar. He was my fiancé in my previous life. When we were kids, we used to go on long horse rides together. But in the end, He is someone I should never get involved with. Terrified of her tragic past repeating, she starts thrashing wildly on the horse. Absolutely not. Startled by her sudden panic, the horse rears up violently, losing its footing and sending Capella falling backward. Time seems to slow down as she plummets toward the ground, tears welling up in her eyes as she braces for impact. What? Her father throws himself off the horse, sliding underneath her to cushion her fall with his own body. Papa! She frantically shakes him as he lies motionless on the ground, terrified that he might be seriously hurt. Don't mess around on the horse, he barks angrily as he sits up. You should put your own safety first. You won't get a second chance. Please, I'm sorry, she whimpers, completely overwhelmed as tears stream down her face. He turns his face away, his heart pounding. I can't hear it. Ugh, I thought my heart was gonna stop. I'm glad you're safe. Is he actually worried about me? Then why did you abandon me back then? She remembers his cold silhouette walking away while she was chained in the dark. Ahem? Do you dislike it that much? You're engaged to Oberon, you know? That's right. Now I need to somehow avoid getting engaged to His Highness. Why? Because Capella is going to marry Papa. What did I just say? What am I saying? Capella is going to marry Papa. What did I just say? What am I saying? You're being ridiculous. He's the one I'm trying to get revenge on, right? A parent and child. Can't get married. I asked His Majesty the King, but it turned out to be impossible. Is he actually an idiot? I think he will have to remain with His Highness Oberon. He places the official, signed engagement certificate on the table before her. I don't want this. It's nice to meet you, Lady Capella. He looks as beautiful as ever. He is a man who gained a lot of popularity due to his upright and cheerful personality. He was my fiancé, whom I loved and was proud of, but for some reason, he wanted to break off our engagement, and he died the exact same day I met up with him. I don't want anything to do with him anymore. She turns her back on him completely, leaving the young prince utterly dumbfounded. Hey, Capella. Inside, he smugly smiles. Daddy is much better than a child like this. I'll take a break from my revenge for now. I will take advantage of my daddy. Isn't there a limit to being overprotective? She's here, the nagging old hag. In my last life, when I took ladies' education to a higher level, this old hag kept on picking on me. If you want a daughter in the future, then you should be kinder to me. Fufu, please feel free to take it easy today, as it's a private occasion. Capella, please take a seat. Have a seat here, Capella. She walks towards the table, but instead of sitting, she gently tugs on her father's sleeve. I want to sit on Daddy's lap. Outwardly, he says, don't be ridiculous, while internally sighing, they'll never get off my back. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. Forgive me, she says with a cute wink, thinking to herself, how's this for childish behavior? With this, I'll prove that I'm not suitable to be welcomed into the royal family. But to her absolute shock, the woman simply smiles warmly. What? In the past, I swear she would have been furious with me. Why is she acting differently in this life? Even so, it's better than I thought it would be. Then she looks at her father suspiciously. Hey, Dad, you're doing this, aren't you? Not at all, he replies coolly, adding, that's an interesting way to put it. As your childhood friend, I was worried about you, she giggles, making Capella wonder, by any chance, are these two old friends? Wait, she was Daddy's best friend in the past, and her older sister is a queen or something? That being said, no one asked you to play the scary mother. What does Miss Capella like to do for fun? Prince Oberon asks eagerly. Do you like playing house? What do girls like to do? Do you like to draw? Capella thinks, I'll say something that's not received well here. Horse, Capella mutters. The woman gasps in surprise. What a surprise! Does Miss Capella enjoy horseback riding? Oberon beams. That's very unusual for a girl. I also like horseback riding. I like pretending to be a horse, Capella says with a brilliant, innocent smile, leaving her father and the woman completely speechless. Pretending to be a horse? Oberon mutters in confusion. What does that mean? Suddenly, her father speaks up. Hey, Oberon. Capella cheerfully shouts, please become Capella's horse. Internally cackling, Oberon will be furious with such a rude offer, and he'll break off our engagement. But Oberon's face lights up with sheer excitement. Ah, I see, he cries, dropping straight down to his knees. He happily gets on all fours and asks, is this okay? Leaving Capella frozen in absolute disbelief. What are you doing? She screams, her head practically exploding from the sheer absurdity of the situation. Oberon, stand up right now, his mother shrieks in panic, dragging him up. Meanwhile, Corvus kneels down to his daughter's level. Capella, listen to me. From now on, you can only tell Daddy that, he commands with a straight face, while his inner thoughts scream, I will be Capella's horse. Capella sweat drops. What's up with that comment you just made? The maid gently tells the prince, you heard what your mother said. She's gonna be your wife, so take good care of her, his mother says, though she mutters, that's true, but Capella smiles mischievously, thinking, with this, the engagement will definitely be called off. By the way, Corvus, I hear you've been holding back on work lately. Is that true? Capella starts panicking. Has the story changed? Is there still a problem or not? I'm just focusing on my lord's business instead of doing research in remote areas, Corvus replies. I'm getting too old for this. Capella grits her teeth. I need to think about my next strategy. You used to be so passionate about finding magical objects, the woman giggles. You're not even 25 yet. How could you say that? Seeing Oberon swinging his legs happily, Capella fumes. At this point, I have no choice but to resort to physical means. Speaking of work, Oberon begins. What are you doing? Oberon suddenly stands up and points. The Reaper Duke. Both Corvus and the woman freeze in surprise. Lord Axonon is known as the Reaper Duke, isn't he? After all, when he was active on the battlefield, Capella's eyes sparkle with mischief. It's time. She quickly reaches for her teacup. Now you've done it, she screams, throwing the entire cup of hot tea directly at the young prince's face. The tea drenches his hair, and the empty teacup lands perfectly upside down on his head, but he just sits there with a dazed, blank smile. A heavy, deadpan silence falls over the entire garden. Capella thinks triumphantly, "Come at me now." The mother stares at the scene, completely frozen. But then her lips slowly curl into a warm, amused smile. "I'm sorry about my son, Miss Capella, Corvus," she laughs, playfully slapping the prince on the back of his head. "Haha, he's just a child." Well, I guess that's enough for today. Capella stands there in utter confusion. Wait, why am I the one being apologized to? Capella, I hope you and the prince will continue to be a great match. Please be good to him, the mother beams. Capella is completely horrified. And somehow she actually liked it? What happened to breaking off my engagement? She screams internally, pulling her hair in absolute panic. If this continues, I'm going to be executed again. What's wrong? Her father asks softly, gently picking her up and cradling her in his arms. Excuse me? Capella shrieks, looking down at herself in absolute shock. What? Just stay inside the carriage, her father commands coldly. Inside, his true feelings echo. Thank you. Maybe it's because of that? Capella wonders, recalling when she sat on his lap. She tilts her head in deep confusion. Did he just think, thank you? Come on, his mother snaps as she drags the young prince away. Where did you hear about the Reaper Duke? But Oberon eagerly looks back, crying, Isn't that cool, Reaper Duke? That's not a nice nickname, she scolds him. Just then, an officer interrupts. Your Highness, the prince. Pardon my interruption, the guard says. You have received a missive from Duke Ophiria. The letter states that he has adopted a new candidate to become a saint, and she wishes for an audience with Her Royal Highness, the Queen. The mother's eyes widen in surprise. What's this child's name, she wonders. If I remember correctly, it's Yuno. A vision of a beautiful girl with long silver hair appears in the shadows. A warm, golden light bathes the carriage as her father gently pats her head, his expression filled with a rare, quiet tenderness. Suddenly, the young prince drops to his knees with his hands pressed tightly together. I'm sorry about the other day, he pleads. Capella stares at him, completely unimpressed. What is this, she wonders. The prince continues frantically. It's about my response regarding Miss Capella's father when I called him the Reaper Duke. Capella, however, only remembers throwing the hot cup of tea straight at his face while cackling inside. Yes, that is truly all she can remember of their last meeting. Well, it doesn't matter, Capella says, taking a calm sip of her tea. I don't remember anything, so don't bother apologizing. Internally, she screams, Now please, leave quickly. But her dismissive words are taken in the completely wrong way. What a generous person, as expected of Miss Capella. Prince Oberon beams with sheer admiration, practically sparkling with joy, leaving Capella shuddering in utter disgust at his enthusiasm. He gently places a beautifully decorated, gold-embossed letter onto the table before her. Capella stares at the card, her eyes narrowing into flat lines. What is this? It's an invitation, Oberon announces with a dazzling smile, for my birthday party. Capella's face instantly contorts in sheer horror. No way. I absolutely do not want to go. Lady Capella, Oberon cheers excitedly. We're going to have a lot of fun on that day, so please bring your whole family. Capella stammers, while Oberon squeals internally, she's so cute. On the day of the party, Capella stands proudly in a remarkably simple purple dress, a little bluebird perched on her shoulder as her father towers behind her like a dark guardian. Is it okay for you to wear a dress like that? Her father asks, looking down at her. Little does he know, this is all part of her plan. A plain dress that looks out of place will ruin my image. The royal family will hate me, and the engagement will definitely be called off. Foo, 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 foo. Well, as long as you like it, I don't care, her father remarks softly. But then she notices his inner thoughts. It matches the color of my eyes. Capella freezes in complete shock. Oh no, it's just a coincidence, she stammers frantically, sweat pouring down her face. As the daughter of the Axonon family, I simply thought it would be classy to follow the latest trends. Her father replies blankly, I don't really care, leaving her completely red-faced and flustered. Your mother did too, he murmurs softly, his expression turning nostalgic. She used to like that color. Capella blinks in surprise. My mother? But it didn't suit her at all, he scoffs lightly. Meanwhile, his true thoughts overflow with affection. Even if it's just Capella, I wish she could stay with me forever. You stay right there, he commands her. I'm going around to greet people. Yet, as he turns to leave, his inner thoughts cry out, I feel lonely the second I'm away from her. Watching his departing figure, Capella's expression darkens as painful memories resurface. If that is truly the case, then what happened back then? Why did he just abandon me to rot in the dark? He pauses and looks back over his shoulder. Did you say something? He asks, his inner thoughts hoping. Is Capella feeling lonely as well? Have a lovely time, she says with a brilliant fake smile, waving him off. But internally, she transforms into a raging demon, screaming, just hurry up and go already. As her father walks away, weeping comically in his thoughts over how much he already misses his beloved daughter, Capella lets out a heavy, tired sigh. Well then, Capella mutters, looking around the bustling garden party. She observes the elegant guests and the children running around playing. This scenery, it looks so familiar. Suddenly, she remembers a boy falling down and scraping his knee, and a gentle, magical glow wrapping around the wound to heal it. Her eyes widen as the memories of her previous life come rushing back. She remembers the saintly girl who had knelt down to heal the young boy's knee using her miraculous glowing magic. That girl was Yuno, the beloved saint of the kingdom. The onlookers had gasped in absolute wonder. That's the first time I've ever seen magic, one cried. It's amazing, another shouted. Back then, young Capella had clasped her hands together, her eyes shining with pure, innocent adoration for the saint. Saints and miracles have not always existed in this world. The magic once used by the gods was a miraculous power granted strictly to those chosen as saints. And it is said that an era blessed with a saint will always be a prosperous, peaceful era. She was always there for me, even when I was sad, Capella reminisces, remembering how Yuno used to read to her and comfort her. She was the only person who showered me with true love, a love that even my own father never showed me. As she scans lost in thought, she suddenly feels a gentle tap on her shoulder. A charming youth points across the garden. If you're looking for your fiancé, His Highness Oberon, he's right over there. Thank you very much, Capella replies politely. The youth smiles warmly, bowing slightly. You're welcome. Rachel, someone calls out, and the youth waves. Well, I'll see you later, he says, running off. Capella taps her chin thoughtfully. He looks kind of familiar. More than that, suddenly she remembers who she is really here to find and whips around in a panic. Spotting Yuno's familiar silver hair, Capella's face lights up with joy as she runs toward her. She gasps. But before she can reach her, a large splash of thick purple juice is dumped directly over her head, completely ruining her plain dress. Oh dear, my hand slipped and my drink accidentally spilled, a mocking voice sneers from above her. I'm glad you wore such a plain dress today. You understand your place, right? The girl taunts. Looking down at her ruined clothes, a sudden realization hits Capella. Now I remember. Despite being the sister-in-law of the lovely and gentle Saint Yuno, this girl's personality was the exact opposite. Vile, cruel, and utterly wicked. She's a horrible person, Capella realizes, recalling the malicious nature of Yuno's sister-in-law. However, this incident was the catalyst that allowed me to become friends with Yuno. And this time, it's the same way, Capella resolves, looking around the garden party as her father walks by. Suddenly, her father's inner thoughts echo softly. Hang in there, Capella. What? You're just looking at me. You are not even saying anything. Capella huffs, turning away, unaware of his silent thought. It's easy for me to help her. As her father walks away, his true thoughts overflow. I have to help Capella become stronger little by little. But Capella merely grits her teeth in bitter frustration. Don't be ridiculous, Capella screams internally. I was left all alone, abandoned by my own father on the executioner's block. And I'll be afraid of this? She fumes, gripping her glass of juice tightly. Not a chance, she declares, throwing the purple drink directly at her bully's face. Kya! The girl shrieks as the liquid drenches her. Glaring with absolute fury, she demands, What did you just do? Oh, my apologies, Capella sneers with a dark, flaming aura. Your beautiful dress got dirty, didn't it? Pulling the girl's chin up, Capella smiles wickedly. But that evil grin of yours? It looks nice on you. You've picked a fight with Capella Axonon over this, she thinks coldly. You'd do well to remember that. This is an act worthy of the daughter of the Reaper Duke. I've done my best to return the favor, Capella laughs triumphantly. The wicked girl falls backward onto the ground, trembling and completely terrified of Capella's overwhelming aura. Feeling thoroughly satisfied, Capella turns on her heel and begins to walk away with a triumphant smirk. What's going on? Prince Oberon asks, suddenly noticing the commotion from across the garden. Humph, Capella pouts, completely unaware of her father watching with sheer admiration in his thoughts. My Capella is looking really cool. Hick, Capella, you're so mean, the spoiled girl wails loudly, rubbing her eyes in front of the other guests. Behind her hands, a devious grin spreads across her face. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, she whimpers, completely faking her tears. Oh crap, Capella panics, realizing she fell right into the girl's trap. Older sister? A voice calls out. Yuno runs over, her eyes filled with concern. Sister, why are you crying? She asks. The girl immediately points her finger, sobbing, I didn't do anything, but Capella, You mean her? Yuno murmurs, looking towards Capella. No, that's a lie, Capella yells, rushing back to defend herself. The fact is, I did it to get back at her, but there's no way to prove it, as my dress and the stain are of the same color. Capella realizes in a cold sweat. Yuno looks on with a deeply conflicted expression. What should I do if things go on like this? Oh my goodness, is Yuno gonna hate me now? Capella screams internally, clutching her head in utter despair. Your Capella has made a huge blunder. For the second time, at the age of 5, she laments, her soul practically leaving her body. My best friend, Yuno, I think I made her hate me on our very first meeting. Yuno opens her mouth to speak. Did my sister do something rude? Yuno asks softly. Capella practically swoons with relief. Safe. Well, she did, but the sister stammers, her face turning pale as she realizes her plan backfired. It's no big deal, Capella stammers, feeling a wave of guilt. Now it actually seems to be my fault. I knew it. I'm stuck, Capella sighs internally, forcing a polite smile. What's going on? A sharp voice suddenly barks, cutting through the garden. Prince Oberon storms over. What happened here? Why is my fiancé crying? He demands, misinterpreting Capella's tears of frustration as sadness. Your Highness Oberon, the wicked girl whimpers, trying to play the victim once again. No, there has been a misunderstanding. Please look at what Miss Capella has done to my dress, she cries. Capella fires back. I know I shouldn't have, but you did it first. I see what's happened to Miss Ophelia's dress, Oberon muses, crossing his arms. However, I don't see any distinct difference with Miss Capella's. If you'll excuse me, Oberon says politely, suddenly kneeling down and grabbing the hem of Capella's purple dress. Sniff, sniff. Oberon literally starts sniffing the fabric of her skirt, causing Capella to screech in pure horror. Sister? I'm so embarrassed, Capella squeals, her face burning red. Oberon beams. It's wet, and it definitely smells like grapes. I'm sure Miss Capella's telling the truth. Behind him, his mother stands with a menacing, flaming aura. Don't go about doing whatever you want, his mother roars, delivering a powerful punch to his head. Oberon is slammed face first into the stone floor in a perfect comical bow. What kind of man exposes a woman's thighs in public? The mother fumes. Capella clutches her dress in shock as the dazed prince stammers, Huh? What? I'm sorry. I'm okay. It's not that big of a deal. Capella mumbles shyly through her hands, blushing furiously. Why don't you two go change in the back? The mother suggests before turning. Is that okay with you, Corvus? Her father bows politely. Thank you very much for your concern. As they head inside, Capella and the sister can't help but look back at Yuno, who watches them depart with a quiet, thoughtful expression. Once inside, Prince Oberon immediately drops to the floor in a dramatic kowtow. I'm really very sorry, he wails. That's enough, Capella sighs, looking down at him with an utterly blank expression. After all, she is mentally 23 years old and completely exhausted by his antics. Capella closes her eyes and calms herself, thinking, I'm mentally 23 after all. I'm not so petty as to be blinded by a child's mistakes. But Prince Oberon misinterprets her exhaustion, clenching his fist as he declares, I will take responsibility for this. I'll make it up to you, I promise. Capella's eyes fly open in complete shock. Huh? She gasps. Oberon gently clasps her hands, a sweet blush on his face. Responsibility? Capella stammers, completely bewildered. I mean, we're gonna get married anyway, Oberon reasons, leaving Capella thinking, oh, I see. With a determined and passionate look in his eyes, Prince Oberon vows, by fair means or foul, I will make you happy. Capella recalls her past life, remembering a time when they rode together on a horse through a beautiful green field, feeling truly happy. She remembers how much he adored him back then, smiling brightly as he held her close. I loved you so much, her memories whisper. Yet, Her thoughts darken as she remembers how cold and distant he eventually became. abandoning her when she needed him most.
Snapping back to the present, Capella looks at the young prince beside her with a gentle, knowing smile. Well, he's only 6 years old right now.
Miss Capella? Oberon asks. Forcing a polite smile, Capella apologizes. No, it's my fault. I'm sorry for ruining your birthday. Oberon quickly replies, please, don't worry about it. Looking around, Capella quickly shakes her head back and forth as she asks, by the way, were you with Miss Yuno? Oberon taps his chin. Ah, you mean the recently adopted daughter? I assume she's with her parents and sister. Is that so? Capella mutters, looking dejected. Oberon notices her sadness and asks, what's the matter? Capella sighs. No, it's just, I wanted to be her friend. Even if you say this to a 6-year-old, she thinks, realizing how childish she must sound. Suddenly, before she can say another word, Prince Oberon reaches out and firmly grasps both of her hands. Huh? Wait a minute. Your Highness Oberon? Capella shrieks in surprise as he begins to drag her down the hallway. If that's the case, then leave it to me, he yells back enthusiastically. Eh? Capella squeaks, completely dazed and dizzy by his sudden outburst. Eee! Capella screams as she is practically dragged off her feet. My mother says Miss Capella will be the best in the world, Oberon shouts as they run. I've been told to take good care of you. Turning back with a proud smile, Oberon continues. Since we are royalty, we believe that a man who can't make his wife happy can never make his people happy. Capella's face turns bright red with embarrassment. Queen, what kind of teachings are you giving to a 6-year-old? She screams internally, sweat dropping as the prince continues. That's why, Miss Capella. From now on, Oberon says softly, looking back at her with genuine, warm eyes, I want you to rely on me if you feel overwhelmed. Surrounding himself with a sparkling aura of roses, he vows, I'll never let Miss Capella cry again. I swear by the stars above. Tears well up in Capella's eyes, catching him off guard. Ah, he gasps. Panicking, Oberon stumbles backward as Capella quickly tries to wipe her tears. Sorry, she blurs out. I'm being rude again. Blushing and smiling through her tears, she asks shyly, would you mind calling me by my first name? Seeing her sweet reaction, Oberon is deeply moved, remembering his mother's words. Since we are royalty, we believe that a man who can't make his wife happy can never make his people happy. With a heart full of determination, the young prince resolves once more, I'll never let Miss Capella cry again. I swear by the stars above. But as Capella looks out the window, a bittersweet thought crosses her mind. Despite knowing that it will never come true? Just then, a voice calls out from the courtyard, Lady Yuno! Panting heavily, Oberon and Capella arrive outside just in time to see Yuno's cruel sister gasp in absolute adoration. Oberon! Hand in hand, Oberon and Capella stand together as the sister happily chirps, You're back. Capella's stepsister grits her teeth in jealousy as her father steps forward with a fake slimy smile. Greetings, Your Highness Oberon. Did you need something from one of my daughters? Yes, Oberon answers confidently. My fiancée, Capella, wishes to become friends with Miss Yuno. Capella's jaw drops in shock. I can do that myself, though. He is too straightforward. She panics. Standing quietly in the shadow of her family, young Yuno looks on with a silent, empty gaze. The cruel mother fans herself and scoffs, Oh my, Capella, wouldn't you rather have Charla as a friend instead of this girl? Charla forces a sweet, mock-sympathetic smile as she steps in. I know you two had a fight earlier, but she's actually a very sweet girl, you know? Mom? The sister cries out, shocked by the sudden turn. Capella clenches her fists, her eyes glowing with determination. I'm not looking to be friends with just anyone. I have already been tricked by that 6-year-old. Don't act like a coward. Taking a deep breath, Capella steps forward resolutely, telling herself, speak with grace. Stepping right up to Yuno, Capella clenches her hands and calls out, So, Yuno, it's my request. Dropping to her knees, Capella bows her head in a dramatic formal request. Please be friends with me. A heavy silence falls over the courtyard as Capella nervously gulps, her hands trembling with anxiety. Yuno looks down at her with wide, sad eyes. Is it because I'm a saint? She asks quietly. Absolutely not, Capella shouts back instantly, looking up. Looking straight into Yuno's eyes, Capella declares passionately, It is for the girl Yuno whom I met yesterday. I want to be that Yuno's friend. Capella stares up with absolute sincerity, her heart hammering against her chest as she waits for Yuno's response. Yuno stares back, completely stunned and deeply touched by Capella's honest words. Slowly, Yuno reaches out and gently takes Capella's hands, pulling her up. A warm, sparkling smile spreads across Yuno's face. I might not know much about friendship, but, she says softly, Please treat me well, Yuno finishes happily. Hearing those words, Capella's face lights up with pure, unadulterated joy. Waving her hand enthusiastically, Capella calls out bye-bye as Yuno's carriage prepares to depart. As the carriage rolls away, Yuno looks out the window, watching her new friend with a gentle smile. But beside her, her sister glares with absolute hatred, while the parents share a dark, sinister look. Back inside the carriage, the cruel sister suddenly snaps, delivering a brutal slap to Yuno's face. "How could you?" she screeches. "Are you trying to get close to His Highness?" Yuno falls to the floor, her cheek bruised as blood drips slowly onto the carriage carpet. Looking down at Yuno with a terrifying, malicious smile, the wicked mother sneers, "A well-dressed rat! I wonder how you enthralled them." Heavy foot ruthlessly stomps down on Yuno's delicate fingers as she gasps in pain. To her cruel adoptive family, her suffering is of absolutely no concern. "Even a rat can be of some use," her adoptive father sneers inwardly, "for just the cost of their food. At best, we can use her to find a weakness in that damned Axonon family, no matter how small that weakness might be." Looming over her with a terrifying glare, he demands coldly, "Do you understand, Saint Sama?" Trembling on the floor, Yuno whispers, "Yes, sir." Meanwhile, young Capella happily holds up an adorable hand-drawn invitation. "Yuno, please come and play with me." "Capella." She huffs proudly as her maid, Grace, claps in admiration at her sweet gesture. Determined to change the future, Capella thinks to herself, "This time I have to get even closer to Yuno." Aloud, she asks, "Grace, is this okay?" Grace smiles warmly, "I think you did a very good job." However, Grace suggests with a smile, "Let's ask your husband to check it as well." Capella shrieks in pure panic. "Eh?" Later, Capella's father looks over the letter and says, "Please also invite His Highness Oberon," but inwardly he whines, "I wonder if you could write a letter conveying your love for Daddy instead." Capella's sweat drops, sighing dramatically at the thought of having to deal with the overenthusiastic young prince. "I suppose it's thanks to Prince Oberon that you two became friends," her father muses, writing at his desk. "I should express my gratitude. Frankly, the royal family has been bugging me for more interaction, so this is a good excuse. But that's all for now. You may leave," he says smoothly, putting down his pen. The moment she turns, the Duke clenches his fist in a dramatic panic. "If she doesn't write me a sweet letter, I'll lose face. I must always be the coolest dad in front of Capella." Completely exhausted by her father's hidden dramatics, Capella blankly replies, "Ah, yes, I'll be on my way." Walking down the grand hallway, she sighs, "His Highness Oberon." She walks through the quiet corridors, lost in deep thought about how to approach the prince. Pausing by a sunlit window, she gazes out at the beautiful garden, trying to clear her head. She shakes her head, thinking, "I was right. I can't let things go on like they did in my past life." Besides, she reasons, having the future crown prince as an ally comes with a few extra perks. The plan to save Yuno remains the same. With a newfound burst of energy, Capella rushes down the spiral staircase, her loyal little bluebird fluttering close behind. Her eyes gleam with a sudden flash of inspiration. At times like these, why don't I utilize our family's famous treasury, she thinks, staring up at the massive locked double doors. She places her small hand against the heavy wooden door, preparing to push it open. Gritting her teeth, she shoves the giant doors with all her tiny physical strength. Suddenly, the magic lock clicks, and a brilliant red gemstone glows as the heavy doors slowly creak open. Capella steps inside, her eyes whitening as she beholds the vast room filled with endless shelves of rare treasures. "In order to make this a wonderful tea party for Yuno," she giggles excitedly, "I am going to use some of the most gorgeous tableware in here." Spotting an ornate golden plate, she reaches out, thinking, "This one is really beautiful." But suddenly, a furious voice roars behind her, "You idiot!" Her father swoops in and violently yanks her hand back. "What kind of idiot would touch a magical tool with their bare hands?" he scolds. "Dad?" Capella gasps in shock. "Some of these things explode at a mere touch," her father lectures seriously. "You've got to learn to hold back a little bit." Feeling foolish, Capella hangs her head. "I'm sorry, Dad." "So that plate is a magical tool?" she asks softly. Her father sighs. "Ah, yes, it is. And not only this plate, but everything in this room is a magical tool." Capella looks around the room, completely stunned to realize the sheer scale of her family's collection. "Whoa, all of them?" she squeals in pure amazement. "What are you so surprised about?" her father chuckles. "If I don't keep them at home, where else would I keep them?" Inwardly, he sweat drops. What's this? Have I really never told her about our family's actual business? Sensing an opportunity, a mischievous grin spreads across Capella's face. This is my perfect chance to find out all of my dad's secrets. Instantly switching to her ultimate weapon, she looks up with teary, sparkling eyes. "Daddy, Capella doesn't know anything about it," she whimpers, instantly piercing her father's heart with cuteness overload. A sweet, blooming aura of roses fills the room as the Duke is completely defeated by her adorable display. All right, I'll explain it to you, her father yields, kneeling down. Are you familiar with magical tools? Capella puffs her cheeks proudly. Of course, I know that much. So cute, her father squeals internally. A magical tool is an artifact created more than a century ago, he explains. They are relics imbued with the miraculous power of ancient magic. Because they possess supernatural effects and cannot be replicated with our current technology, we call them magical tools. I knew it, Capella thinks. Yes, you are correct, her father beams. By the way, that plate you wanted to use can detoxify any poison. Inwardly, he swoons. Heavens, my child is a literal genius. I'm sure she'll save the world someday. Have you ever heard of the two great dukes? Her father asks, gesturing around the room. That title refers to the divine miracles that exist in this world, which are managed separately by two noble families. Capella immediately visualizes the holy and pure saint, surrounded by pristine white lilies. Got it! The Ophelia family, Capella guesses eagerly. Exactly, her father nods. Our family, Axanon, manages the magical tools, while the Ophelia family educates and manages the saints. That is how the kingdom of Quasar is supported, by the strength of these two great dukes. Wow, our family is even more amazing than I thought, Capella cheers as her father pats her head affectionately. I know you find all of this very interesting, her father says gently, before his expression turns serious. But, Capella tilts her head, wondering what he is about to say. To ever come in here, her father warns her sternly. Capella panics internally. I have to find some beautiful tableware that will make Yuno happy as soon as possible. Outside in the grand garden, a beautiful gazebo is decorated with lovely pink roses, perfectly prepared for the upcoming tea party. Servants bustle around the estate, finalizing the decorations to ensure everything is absolutely perfect. Have the snacks arrived? Capella asks happily. Her maid replies with a warm smile. Both the snacks and the tea have arrived, just as Capella requested. But how did you know about that establishment? Grace asks curiously. Capella breaks into a cold sweat, thinking, I can't tell her that in a few years from now it will become a huge success. Aloud, she just offers an awkward giggle. Suddenly, a deafening crash echoes through the peaceful garden, shattering the quiet atmosphere. I'm terribly sorry, madam. A terrified maid weeps, trembling on the stone path beside a shattered vase and a ruined rose. The maid looks up with a pale, tear-stained face, bracing herself for a harsh scolding. Are you hurt? Capella asks gently, reaching out a hand. Well, the maid stammers. Seeing her scraped skin, Capella says with concern, Your hand is frayed. You need to get treatment soon. Grace, can you please get me a replacement vase? Capella asks. Behind her, a soft, knowing smile spreads across Grace's face. Gazing at Capella's kindness, Grace thinks with a swell of pride, You've grown into a fine woman, haven't you? Huh? Capella blinks, noticing her maid's emotional gaze. But if we could ever get to meet, Grace's thoughts wander warmly. I'm sure we'll have endless stories to tell each other about how incredibly proud we are of the little lady, Grace muses happily. Capella blushes bright red, crying out in embarrassment, What are you talking about? Please hurry up and get me a new vase, Capella stammers, desperately trying to change the subject. Okay, miss, I will replace it, Grace chuckles warmly. Back inside the mansion, she is approached by another maid who says hesitantly, the master said that if something goes missing, we should get something from the treasury to replace it. Grace looks surprised, murmuring, The treasury? How unusual. A heavy, uneasy feeling settles over Grace as she turns and walks down the corridor, wondering why the Duke would suggest such a thing. Capella huffs slightly, thinking, I don't know what she's talking about, but if it had been the old me, I might have yelled at that clumsy maid instead. Memories of her horrific past life flash before her eyes, blood, death, and the terrifying shadow of the guillotine. Though if anyone were to go through that kind of horror, they would hardly be able to stay composed, she reminds herself, grateful for the chance to be a better person this time. Suddenly, a realization hits her. Oh, now that I think about it, Grace. Capella envisions Grace walking away, just like she did back then. In my previous life, I was told that she had suddenly been fired. No matter how many times I asked my father why, he would just ignore me. He was just that adamant on not telling me. Capella bites her lip as the puzzle pieces begin to fit together. I think the day Grace went missing was also the day when, just then, a maid calls out, Miss, can I help you? If you're not feeling well, then please rest in your room, she suggests kindly. Capella gasps in surprise. That's right. Capella's eyes widen as the final memory clicks into place. In my previous life, I was busy preparing for a tea party just like in this one. I'm sure a loud noise rang across the place while I was getting ready. The tea party had to be canceled. Now that I think about it, that sound? She remembers her father's furious words from earlier. Some of these things explode at a mere touch. You've got to learn to hold back a little bit. A chill runs down Capella's spine as she connects the dots. So if I consider Grace going missing after the tea party, doesn't that mean Grace? Capella panics, spinning around and sprinting back toward the mansion as her servants call out in confusion. Young miss? She runs as fast as her small legs can carry her, her heart pounding with terror. Please, please, Grace, don't die, she begs inwardly, tears pricking her eyes as she sprints through the corridors. Bursting into the mansion, Capella slides to a halt as she spots Grace holding a broom. Why are you in such a rush? Grace asks, utterly baffled.
Capella's jaw drops as she lets out a string of incomprehensible shock noises.
Grace smiles warmly, tilting her head. What's the matter? You look like you've seen a ghost. The master said he'd get a replacement vase for me. I was just about to come back, Grace explains. Capella gasps. Huh? My dad? Grace nods. Yes, he was really excited about it. Capella's heart drops. Then maybe if I leave it as is? She visualizes her father walking alone toward the massive, heavily guarded doors of the treasury. A terrifying thought consumes her mind. Will Daddy really die? Meanwhile, in a flashback to moments prior, the Duke steps in and says smoothly, "A replacement vase? Then I'll get it for you." Grace replies in surprise, "Ah, okay." Walking away, the Duke thinks, the other day Capella was showing some interest in the magical tools in the basement. Let's replace it with something safer. Last time I kicked her out rather quickly. This is a good opportunity. As he climbs the stairs, he reasons, there was a way to get her married with only minimal education, but Capella is smarter than I thought. A tense, silent atmosphere fills the hallway as the Duke approaches the fateful treasury room. He stands before the massive, locked treasury doors, where the glowing red gemstone hums with dangerous, unstable magic. With a steady hand, the Duke grabs the golden door handle and turns it, the lock releasing with a sharp click. A warning echo of "protect yourself" floats through the air as the magical lock begins to click open. The Duke's eyes widen as a blinding light bursts from the opening treasury. The door swings open completely, releasing an overwhelming torrent of unstable magical energy that swallows his silhouette. Grace looks surprised, saying, "The master said he'd get a replacement vase for me. I was just about to come back?" Capella stands frozen in the hallway as a realization hits her. According to the memories of my previous life, there's supposed to be an explosion in the mansion today. If Dad went underground instead of Grace, who was supposed to die? Capella worries, her heart pounding with dread. A terrifying vision of her father engulfed in flames flashes before her eyes. If I leave it like this, Dad, are you gonna die? And then my revenge will be over, she reminds herself, clutching her dress tightly as the conflicting emotions rage inside her. Looking out the window, she thinks, freed from that cold and cruel father, a new life. She remembers the Duke's gentle face and the sweet aura around him. My Capella is a real angel. All of her father's affectionate internal thoughts flood her memory. I need to work harder to protect this angel. She's so soft. Even her smell is lovely. Maybe I should just give up my title. I want just the two of us to live together in comfort. I will be Capella's horse. I'm also going to marry Capella. I must always be the coolest dad in front of Capella. Young lady, Grace calls out in shock as Capella suddenly spins around and bolts down the long corridor. Capella sprints as fast as her small legs can carry her, her purple hair flying behind her in a frantic blur. I can't just sit here and do nothing, she determines, tears welling in her eyes. I'm not going to let you die on your own. Why have you been so cold to me all these years? In his heart, he really cares about me that much. Why did you love me until the very end? Her shoes clatter loudly against the wooden steps as she leaps down the grand staircase. Why didn't you show me? She cries out internally, her bluebird flying close behind her in a rush. Maybe the future me? Maybe I did something he didn't like, but she remembers his serious, stern gaze from the previous timeline, wondering if there was a deeper meaning to his distance. I hate you so much, she confesses to herself, tears streaming down her face. Why, please, be just out of my reach, she pleads silently, hearing the treasury door handle turn with a sharp click. Don't disappear without my permission. Revenge is, there's no point in doing it unless I do it with my own hands. Dad! Capella screams, throwing her hand out as she reaches the landing. Her father turns back in absolute surprise. In that exact second, a colossal, blinding explosion erupts from inside the treasury, completely engulfing them in a flash of destructive light. The shockwave rips violently through the corridor, shattering windows and blowing back the heavy dust. Master, a voice whispers through the thick, settling smoke as ruined books and shattered debris litter the hallway. Grace walks up the stairs, coughing through the haze. What was that sound I just heard? Huh? Master? Lady Capella? Grace gasps in pure horror, spotting the Duke covered in blood and burns, desperately cradling his unconscious daughter. The Duke gathers his strength and scoops Capella's limp, bleeding body up into his arms, ignoring his own severe injuries. Immediately, contact the House of Ophelia, the Duke orders hoarsely, his face streaked with blood. With the power of the saint, Capella, the Duke mutters desperately. Grace panics. Please do not overdo it. Master, are you not hurt? But the Duke yells back, it doesn't matter about me. Capella is the only one, he growls fiercely, his eyes filled with absolute determination. Capella is the one thing I won't let die. For me, he vows, holding her close to his chest. Capella is all I have left, the Duke weeps internally, memories of her as a baby and a little girl flashing through his mind. Below them, a faint, weak chirp echoes. Pie, pie. The Duke looks down with concern. Grace, that bird is also sitting on top of Capella. Let's pray for healing alongside each other. Capella values it so much, the Duke whispers, remembering how happy his daughter was whenever she held her little companion. Looking down at the injured bird, the Duke says softly, I'm sorry, you were my family as well. The little blue bird lies weakly on the floor, letting out a painful chirp as feathers drift around it. Grace, move quickly, the Duke urges, stepping over the debris. We'll also need a carriage for anyone who needs one, the Duke instructs. Just then, a servant shouts, Master! The butler bursts in, out of breath. I'm back. His Highness Oberon and the Ophelia family. They have arrived. Capella is the only, the Duke repeats, his voice trembling with desperation. The only invaluable part of my life that I refuse to let die, he declares, carrying her out of the smoke. As she drifts in the darkness, Capella thinks, I end up comparing it with my present one. Ruri is with me, she thinks, visualizing her loyal little bird. Grace's life has been saved, she notes with relief. What's more, I can hear my dad's inner voice. Then why? I guess I am hopeful. Although I know that even if I survive, I might just end up being betrayed by my dad again and fall into despair. Hopefully I can live for a bit longer to know what happens down the line. Meanwhile, her father weeps over her. Capella, please wake up. You can hit or curse at me all you want, but please, hurry up and get up. Capella gasps awake, her eyes wide with shock. She sits up in her bed and looks over, spotting her father sitting nearby. Dad? She whispers in disbelief. Without warning, her father pulls her into a warm embrace. Sleepyhead, he says gently. Smiling softly, he adds, 3 years is too long to be sleeping. Capella's jaw drops in complete shock as she screams internally, EHP? 3 years? In a flashback, blinding magical light fills the room as a glowing butterfly flutters over Capella's unconscious body. The saintly magic washes over her, healing her severe burns and wounds as the light envelops her. Looking tired but relieved, the saintly daughter Yuno says softly, I think all of her injuries have now been healed. Her father, Lord Axanon, asks desperately, when will she wake up? Turning to him, Yuno looks apologetic. I'm sorry, I don't know. Lord Axanon's face darkens with frustration and impatience, letting out a sharp tisk that shocks those in the room. Countess Ophelia immediately steps in. Lord Axanon, that's too much, she scolds. Even if she's a saint, my daughter is only 5 years old. Countess Ophelia's lips curl into a sinister smile as she continues, rather than that, you promised to give me whatever I wanted as a reward for this. Dark, thorny vines seem to creep around the room as Countess Ophelia places her hands on Yuno's head, whispering, you haven't forgotten, have you? Clenching his fist, the Duke replies grimly, of course. Below, Prince Oberon watches with concern. Turning to the young prince, the Duke requests, as soon as you return to the castle, will you please inform His Majesty of everything that has happened? Prince Oberon replies with fierce determination, yes, I will. If I can be of any help to Capella, I will do it. Countess Ophelia smiles brightly, shifting the subject. More importantly, Lord Axanon, are you fine with not being treated? Yeah, I am fine, the Duke answers calmly. Instead, he glances toward a maid who is carefully holding a tiny, heavily bandaged blue bird resting on a pillow. Please have this little bird treated, Countess Ophelia requests kindly. Oh, how adorable, Yuno. Yuno nods obediently. Yes, ma'am. Back in the present, the maid continues explaining. So it seems I've been asleep for 3 years. And that's what has happened. Capella realizes, now in a blink of an eye, I have turned 8. Master Corvus was desperate for anything, and the young lady was saved by Lady Yuno, the maid recalls. Capella gasps with sparkling, happy eyes. Though, Capella ponders silently. How much did he pay the Ophelia family? I've never heard of our family being poor, so I guess it's okay, she wonders, before a serious thought strikes her. So who was the culprit behind the explosion? Do you remember the maid who broke the vase just before? She asks. In her mind, the image of the suspicious sweating maid flashes. It's her. Why? Capella questions, but she realizes I don't know any details regarding it. What happened to her? Capella asks. The maid smiles reassuringly. Well, of course. The master dismissed her, so the little lady has nothing to be afraid of anymore. Anyway, young lady, what would you like to eat today? The maid asks cheerfully. You're still sick, however. We will do our best to accommodate your requests. Just then, a faint chirp-chirp echoes. Capella looks down in sheer disbelief, sweating profusely as a giant, round, fat bird spirit looms behind a chubby little bluebird. Is she even alive? Capella gently holds the extremely fat Luli, remembering the maid's words. Your father had also asked her to help Luli with her treatment. That's very unlike him, she thinks, looking at the bird with a softened expression. As he had abandoned both of us in my previous life, after all, she reminds herself grimly as dark feathers float through the pitch-black void. Although things seem to have changed, I am still upkeeping my desire for revenge, she resolves firmly. A peaceful silence settles over the grand estate as night falls, the gardens illuminated by soft pathway lights. Inside her bedroom, Capella sits in bed and calls out hesitantly, Dad? Her father looks up from his book. What is it? He asks, while his inner voice squeals, Heavens, Capella's voice is still so cute. Nourishment through my ears. I could live with just this, the Duke screams internally. Capella frowns slightly, asking, Why are you in my bedroom? Her father replies calmly, Am I not allowed to be here if I don't have a reason? Besides, I've been sleeping here for the past 3 years, his inner voice adds. Capella jumps in surprise, blushing furiously. For 3 years? The Duke casually glances at her from behind his book, keeping a perfectly straight face. I won't take your bed or anything, the Duke assures her. You have to lie down, otherwise you'll get a head. While his inner thoughts panic, what if something happens while I take my eyes off you again? Capella blinks. Oh? Realizing what he's implying, Capella's face flushes red as she shouts, Does that mean you want me to sleep beside you? Why would I want that? Still, she thinks, glancing sideways at him as she struggles with her emotions. The Duke sits surrounded by a flurry of floating pink feathers, his inner thoughts completely overwhelmed. Sleeping beside my precious daughter? 3. My invaluable gem? 3. Geez, if it's just for today, I'll make an exception, Capella mumbles, turning away. Her father stands up, saying, The chair is enough for me, while crying internally, If she hates me for this, then I will cry. Capella panics. He's so troublesome. Turning back with a bright red blush, Capella screams at the top of her lungs, I want you to sleep beside me. Closing his book with a soft the Duke smoothly climbs onto the bed and pulls up the covers. Okay, he says simply. Settling down comfortably beside his daughter, he closes his eyes. Good night, he says softly. As the Duke happily basks in his internal heaven, what a time to be alive. Capella lies completely frozen and stiff in bed, sweating as she thinks, no, but as night deepens, Capella sits awake in her bed, staring down at her father sleeping peacefully beside her in the quiet room. Staring at him, she asks silently, Hey, Dad, why will you abandon me in the future? What is it about me that you don't like? What did I do wrong? No matter how many times I fall asleep, she thinks, visualizing his distant walking silhouette, I can't forget the way you walked away, your back turned against me as you abandoned me. With a soft sigh, Capella rolls over onto her side, snuggling close to her little bluebird resting on the pillow next to her. Looking at her father's sleeping face, she thinks, I'd rather my heart speak too. I wish you could hear it. A few years later, Duke Corvus sits at the dining table, surrounded by an incredibly dark, threatening aura as he grips his fork in pure frustration. Now 9 years old, Capella sits across from him at the table, sweating nervously. What's wrong? She asks. It's an emergency, her father declares grimly, his mind echoing, it's a crisis for humanity's survival. Capella panics. Oh, could it be that His Royal Highness Oberon has passed away? Clenching his teeth, the Duke's inner thoughts scream in outrage. I was falsely accused for not going on a long business trip, he says aloud, looking deeply offended. Capella and her little bird stare at him in absolute disbelief, completely dumbfounded by his dramatic reaction. After being confined at home for the past few years, I received an imperial order from His Majesty, the Duke explains, while his inner voice complains, There's no way I could go on a business trip without leaving an unconscious Capella behind, right? A royal decree is an absolute order from the king, he continues. If you ignore it, you will be charged with treason. The Duke's face darkens further as shadows loom over him. Even though it's the king's order, he can't just separate Capella from me. His inner thoughts growl. His internal monologue spirals into absolute madness. If something were to happen to Capella while I'm away, how does he intend to take responsibility? Even if they tell me that I am paranoid, the most they would do is keep her at the royal palace. Should I kill him? Hearing his terrifying thoughts, Capella grips her head in pure terror as his inner voice continues to spiral. I will be the king, and Capella will be the queen. Should me and Capella just take over the country? Capella's a god. The name of the new country will be the Empire of the Goddess Capella. Desperate to stop his crazy coup d'etat plans, Capella screams at the top of her lungs, I also want to go on a trip with Dad. Instantly, the terrifying dark aura vanishes, replaced by a soft, sparkling light as the Duke stares at her with a calm, completely blank expression. Later, Yuno clasps her hands together with sparkling, happy eyes. Wow, that's so nice that you and your father are traveling together, she cheers. Right, it's so nice, Capella mutters, looking completely drained of life as she sips her tea, thinking, I hate that I won't be able to see Yuno for 3 months. She fondly recalls her recent memory of throwing her arms around Yuno in a tight hug, while Prince Oberon watched them with a warm smile. I thought things might be awkward and completely changed after so much time had passed, but Capella reflects, remembering how Oberon had cheerfully suggested, let's all meet regularly. We've become close enough to see each other at least once a month, she notes, smiling at the memory of their regular tea parties in the palace garden. Now here we are, sitting together at the royal palace just for fun, Oberon says with a proud, happy smirk. Looking up with a gentle, serene smile, Yuno replies, I think that's really cool. After all, isn't it better to go outside instead of staying holed up in a room? Yuno asks kindly. Capella sweats nervously, thinking, well, I'm not going for a vacation, I'm going for work. This is also for world peace. Oberon chimes in, but 3 months, that's a long time to be away from home, isn't it? Resting a finger on his cheek, Oberon smiles warmly at Capella and says softly, I'll miss you. Capella's heart skips a beat as her face flushes a bright pink. Whoa, she thinks, completely caught off guard. Shaking off the fluttery feeling, her expression turns somber. But only for now, because he's going to dump me in the future, she reminds herself, while Yuno silently observes her reaction. Yuno gazes at Capella with a soft, deeply thoughtful expression, noticing her underlying distress. Suddenly, Oberon claps his hands together enthusiastically. That's it! When Capella comes back, we should all go out together, he declares. Both Yuno and Capella blink in surprise, looking up at Oberon's outstretched, gloved hand. I'm looking forward to it, Oberon beams, his smile radiating pure warmth and excitement. Capella and Yuno share a sweat drop, but smile back warmly, completely won over by his cheerful, bright energy. I agree. That's right, they voice in unison. Sometime later, a grand carriage escorted by armed royal knights travels down a peaceful dirt path surrounded by blooming flowers. Inside the carriage, a heavy silence hangs in the air. Ugh, Capella groans internally, sweating profusely as she sits opposite her father, who is silently reading papers with his glasses on. This reads awkward. I knew it, she cries in her mind. The Duke glances at her from behind his glasses, his inner thoughts panicking. What should I do? Capella seems to be bored. When it comes to topics that women will enjoy, there's one, right? Love stories. Is Capella in love? That's 100 years too early. Capella sweats, thinking, I do have a fiancé, though. By your command. Letting out a soft sigh, whew, the Duke folds his papers, his inner thoughts resolving, it can't be helped. Taking off his glasses, he looks at her with a serious expression and asks, Capella, do you understand the purpose of this visit? Capella rejoices internally, practically crying tears of joy. Anything is fine as long as it frees me from the voices in my head that I can't stand, she screams happily amidst a background of roses. Adopting a smart posture, Capella answers confidently. The identification and investigation of recently discovered magical tools. Isn't that right? Yeah, that's right, her father replies, while screaming internally. That's my Capella, a genius. Magic tools are often buried somewhere, the Duke explains as a golden sparkling artifact is shown partially buried in the ground. If one is excavated, chances are others buried there as well. Capella tilts her head, trying to recall her past. Have I ever heard that before in my past life? She wonders. Her father asks, do you not understand? Isn't it because our ancestors threw them away altogether? Capella asks. Looking at her with sheer pride and adoration, the Duke smiles. You're on the right track, he praises, while his inner voice squeals. Capella is distressed. So cute. Magic tools are now sacred treasures that are like miracles, the Duke explains, as images of a golden pocket watch and a glowing chalice appear. From the perspective of the gods who created them, it seems that they were just tools for daily life. That's why, depending on the type found, the Duke continues, as images of a spear and a syringe float in a magical glow. He closes his eyes, pausing to let his explanation sink in. Capella's eyes sparkle with absolute wonder. Wow, she gasps. It's interesting to be able to predict the life of the gods, isn't it? She thinks excitedly. Staring down at her with intense affection, the Duke thinks, this girl is really... Capella blinks up at him curiously, asking, Dad? Clearing his throat with a soft ahem, the Duke quickly composes himself. No, it's nothing, he says. Therefore, this time we will be checking on the magical artifacts that have been excavated. Outside, the carriage rolls up to the excavation site where knights stand guard. And as I mentioned before, we have determined that there may be others scattered around, the Duke's voice continues. The Imperial Order was to form an excavation team on the spot and investigate the surrounding areas. Suddenly, a massive impact shakes the carriage violently, catching both Capella and her father completely off guard. Kya! Capella screams in terror as her father pulls her tightly into his arms. What's going on? He demands, glaring out the window at the panicked driver. Do not get out of the carriage, the Duke commands firmly as a large stone comes hurtling through the air towards them. Ah! Capella gasps as the stone smashes right through the window glass. Peering out through the cracked pane, she tries to see what is happening outside. Outside, a hostile crowd of angry villagers has gathered, their dark, resentful murmurs echoing ominously through the air. The villagers hold crude wooden clubs, their faces gaunt, dirty, and twisted in desperate fury as they glare at the royal carriage. Armed royal knights quickly form a barrier, raising their spears to keep the aggressive crowd from reaching the carriage. Their eyes are hollow and filled with resentment, clearly driven to their absolute limits by starvation and anger. You lot, stay back! The knights scream, struggling to hold the line, while Capella watches the chaotic scene unfold with wide, anxious eyes. Gripping her shoulder to keep her safe inside, the Duke tells her sternly, do not go outside. That is an order. Stepping out of the carriage, the Duke stands tall and imposing, facing the mob of furious villagers directly. I will hear them out up front, the Duke states calmly. Capella clutches the carriage sill, whispering in deep worry, Dad? With absolute composure, the Duke steps down onto the dirt path, walking right into the center of the hostile crowd. Before the guards can react, a furious young man lunges forward and grabs the Duke by his collar. You filthy Duke of Death, the man screams in rage. Do you intend on taking even our lives? You're seriously selling this territory? Another woman screams, holding her frail, sickly daughter. Look at my child. It's your fault that she's like this, the man bellows, pointing a finger. We're all living like this because of you. Looking down at the screaming man with cold, emotionless eyes, the Duke asks simply, is that all you've got to say? Sweeping his cloak around, the Duke turns his back on them. Guards, he commands coldly, get them out of my sight. Lord Axonon, the villagers scream desperately as the Duke walks away without a second glance. Why? Just why are you doing this? The man weeps, struggling against the knights holding him back. Why would you abandon us? Their heartbreaking cries of betrayal and anger echo through the barren fields. Clambering back into the carriage, the Duke shuts the door, his tall back turned to his daughter as a heavy silence falls over the small space. I apologize, the Duke thinks sadly, but there's nothing that can replace Capella's life. Dad? Capella thinks, clutching her skirt. This village is under the jurisdiction of the Axonon family. That's right. It used to be, the Duke explains. However, now it's under the Ophelia family. Hearing this, Capella's eyes widen in realization. Then, in exchange for treating me, he delegated full authority of the village to them? Capella realizes in horror. You did that? For my sake? She thinks, looking at her father with a mixture of shock and guilt. Capella mutters, suddenly standing up from her seat. I should apologize to the villagers, she cries, rushing toward the carriage door. It has nothing to do with you, her father yells, wrapping his arms around her to hold her back. It's none of your concern. Capella, you really have no involvement in this. Her father's inner thoughts echo as she watches the weeping villagers fade into the distance. The whole thing, it was my discretion. His thoughts continue, holding his daughter close to shield her from the harsh reality. Inside the carriage, a heavy, suffocating silence returns as the carriage continues its long journey. Get the carriage ready quickly, the Duke orders the driver aloud, while his mind remains focused solely on her. You have nothing to apologize for. The carriage speeds down the dirt road, leaving the impoverished village and its desperate cries far behind. It's my fault. It's all due to my incompetence, the Duke thinks, his gloved hand trembling as he clenches it into a tight fist of frustration. Capella squeezes her eyes shut, her heart heavy with the painful truth she has just uncovered. Capella, The Duke's thoughts linger in the quiet space as they sit opposite each other, unable to meet each other's gaze. Sometime later, Capella peers out the carriage window as the scenery shifts into a serene, snow-covered winter wonderland. It's snowing, she whispers softly, watching the delicate white flakes drift down from the sky. They have finally arrived at their destination, the picturesque, snow-capped town of Albatron. It's so cold, Capella shivers as a gust of icy wind sweeps through the air. Bundled up in a thick winter coat and a fluffy white hat, Capella shivers from the biting cold as she tries to keep up with her father. "Dad?" Capella calls out. Her father looks ahead, thinking, "It's too cold. I should have left her back home after all." Capella pouts internally. "Making me feel down like this isn't enjoyable at all." Reaching out, Capella gently grabs hold of her father's sleeve. Surprised, the Duke stops and turns his head to look down at her. "Is this our destination?" she asks, looking up at him with curious eyes. "It's a very beautiful town." Capella beams with a cheerful, rosy smile. The Duke stares at her, completely captivated by her bright expression. Together, the father and daughter walk down the peaceful, snow-lined street, the warm glow of street lamps lighting their path. "Ah, that's right," the Duke says softly, while his mind happily echoes, "After all, my Capella is in love." Observing his sudden change in mood, Capella sweats nervously, thinking, "This is it. As I thought, you're annoyed, aren't you?" "It's been a long time, Lord Axanon," a voice calls out as Capella looks up in surprise. "It's nice to meet you, young lady," a smiling older man with a mustache says warmly. "I have been managing Albatran for some time now," the mayor explains as they walk together under a stone archway. "And this person is," the mayor begins, turning to introduce a young boy waiting for them in the snow. "It's been a while, Miss Capella," the pink-haired boy says with a gentle smile. Capella stands frozen in shock, completely caught off guard by the boy's unexpected appearance. "I'm Rachel Goldsky," he introduces himself with a charming, sparkling smile. "I might become your brother," Rachel says playfully, leaning down with a wink. Capella can only stare in sheer confusion as his black-gloved hand reaches out towards her. "My brother?" Capella repeats, her mind racing to make sense of his words. "Dad?" Capella panics, rushing over to cling to her father's side. What does he mean by that? He wasn't even there in my previous life. As expected, Capella only needs me, the Duke thinks smugly. Capella stares back with a deadpan, annoyed expression, sweating profusely. "Oh, I wonder if you remember," Rachel's voice chimes in. "We've met once before at Prince Oberon's 6th birthday party," Rachel recalls, smiling down at her. "We met for the first time there." A brief memory of their first meeting flashes by, showing a younger Rachel pointing at a sparkling, wide-eyed young Capella. "Oh," Capella realizes, hugging her father's coat tightly. "Right, I wouldn't have been able to recall this if I was actually just a normal kid back then." Having memories of other men besides me, the Duke's inner thoughts seethe with intense jealousy. "I wish I could erase them all." "Well, actually," Rachel continues, rubbing his cheek, "my father already seems to have made up his mind. Since today, when he heard about Lord Axanon coming to investigate, he forcibly brought me along," Rachel sighs, explaining the plans for his potential adoption. "So he's going to take my place once I get married?" Capella muses. The Duke lets out a heavy sigh, asking coldly, "Where is Lord Goldsky now?" "He is currently conducting market research in the surrounding cities," Rachel replies, as the Duke mutters, "That would be a problem." Turning to his daughter, the Duke asks gently, "Are you fine walking for a bit longer?" Yes," Capella replies softly. "Mayor, please guide us to the excavation site immediately," the Duke commands. "You ought to rest after such a tiring journey," the mayor insists, but the Duke snaps, "It's no problem. I can't stay here any longer," he thinks. "Let's go," the Duke says, scooping Capella into his arms. "Let's get this over with," he thinks determinedly. "And return to our cozy haven," his thoughts continue as he quickly strides through the freezing wind, carrying a startled Capella. They begin their trek up the massive snow-covered mountain, their boots sinking deep into the thick, icy snow. "So it was found halfway up the mountain, not on the summit?" the Duke asks. "Yes, there is a cave nearby here," the mayor explains, pointing up. "A long time ago, the previous Lord Axanon and Lord Corvus conducted an investigation there. That place, it makes it hard to believe that there was an oversight in the investigation," the Duke muses. Suddenly, a ridiculous scream echoes from the path ahead. What? Why am I? Capella's mind screams in sudden shock and embarrassment. "Being carried?" she shrieks internally, realizing her father is carrying her princess style. "It must be hard for you to walk in this snowy region," the Duke says smoothly, while his inner voice rejoices, "All according to plan. I have a very good reason." "I won't let such a suspicious kid get any closer to Capella," The Duke fumes, glaring back at Rachel with a menacing aura. Suddenly, all three of them freeze, their attention drawn to an unexpected sight on the snowy trail. That wicked woman! Capella gasps in horror, staring at a familiar blonde girl being carried by a towering, muscular, blindfolded servant. Though that muscular servant, just what is this situation? Oh, it's you, the blonde girl says, her smug yellow eyes narrowing as she looks down at them. It's been a while, she mockingly greets them. Capella grits her teeth in frustration. This girl, just when I had finally managed to forget about her, she's always up to something against me. In other words, she is my ultimate enemy, Capella screams in her mind. Wow, you're still clinging to your father? Heh, the blonde girl mockingly taunts, while chibi devils poke at Capella. You're not any different from me, Capella snaps back internally. I'm going out of my way to work in my father's stead, the blonde girl boasts, posing dramatically. We are not the same. This town, Albaratrin, is my town, she brags grandly. Father has given me some new frontiers and said I could do as I please. I don't understand anything about territory or management, but I like it because there are a lot of beautiful decorations, she babbles. Perhaps, Capella thinks with a sinking feeling. This town is also going to end up just like that impoverished village, Capella realizes in horror, remembering the desperate cries of the starving citizens. Also, Lord Axanon, the girl says smugly, leaning in close. If you've arrived, isn't it proper etiquette to greet the lord of the land? A heavy, tense silence falls over the path as the Duke stares back with cold, silent contempt. Oh, my apologies for the rudeness, the Duke says with a polite smile, though his dark aura screams, what utter nonsense. Would the young lady mind accompanying us on the investigation? The Duke proposes smoothly. Eh? She gasps, her mind immediately panicking. I wouldn't want anyone on my territory doing things they aren't supposed to do. Well then, let's make it quick, the Duke says, looking down at her with a chilling, shadowy grin, before I catch a cold. Scary! Capella and her little blue bird mascot shiver in absolute terror. I've never seen Dad make such a scary face before, Capella screams internally, while her father calmly responds aloud, nothing. Lord Rachel, the blonde girl Charla calls out sweetly as she suddenly clings to his arm. Please hold hands with me, she pleads, looking up with big, glittering eyes, while Rachel replies with a strange smile, sure. Rachel looks over in surprise as Capella and the Duke stand close by, their presence suddenly drawing his attention. Blushing slightly, Rachel locks eyes with Capella, leaving her completely stunned. Charla's face contorts with explosive rage. What's with this situation? Capella thinks in utter disbelief as a venomous aura radiates from the angry girl. It's become very troublesome. Capella panics, burying her face into her father's chest while the Duke gazes back with a serious look.
Your dad will definitely protect you. The Duke's thoughts echo protectively, determined to keep her safe. Capella stares back with a deadpan expression, sweat dropping.
Please wait around here. There's a possibility of a collapse ahead, the Duke tells her gently, setting her down in the snow. I'll go check the excavation site. I'll just have a quick look around and come back. Carry this talisman with you, he instructs, placing a beautiful, glowing blue talisman into Capella's hands. Rachel, please wait here as well, the Duke commands as he heads into the cave. No, I want to come too, Rachel protests, running after him. Capella sighs, thinking seriously as she looks down at the talisman. It looks old, Capella mutters, inspecting the ancient accessory. That's quite the antique, isn't it? Charla sneers, suddenly appearing behind Capella with a mocking smile. Do you need something from me? Capella asks warily. Yeah, Charla replies, her smile widening with a malicious glint. It seems that you're not satisfied with just Prince Oberon, and that you've set your sights on Lord Rachel now, Charla taunts, confronting Capella at the edge of the snowy cliff. I think you deserve an appropriate punishment, Charla says coldly, stepping closer as a tense silence falls over the cliff. Take this, Charla screams, lunging forward with her hands outstretched to push Capella. Gia! Capella shrieks in terror as she is sent flying off the edge of the steep, snowy cliff. Down below, Rachel and the Duke hear the desperate scream echoing from the mountaintop. Oh no, Charla gasps in mock horror, covering her mouth with her hands. Capella's feet slipped, she shouts down the mountain, acting as if it were a mere accident. That hurt, Capella groans, recovering from the fall only to freeze in shock as the ground beneath her begins to shake violently. Keep your voice down, Rachel suddenly barks, grabbing Charla by the shoulder. Eh? She gasps, startled by his dark, menacing expression. Suddenly, Capella's little blue bird lets out a frantic pie and begins flapping its wings wildly, screaming peep, peep, peep. Capella asks in confusion, what is it? A thunderous, rumbling sound reverberates through the mountain, signaling an impending disaster. Eh? Capella gasps, her eyes widening in sheer panic. The snowy mountaintop collapses, sending a massive wall of white snow rushing down toward them in a terrifying avalanche. "This sound!" the Duke exclaims, his heart sinking as the mayor looks back in horror. "Capella!" the Duke screams in absolute panic, turning and sprinting down the mountain as fast as he can. He reaches the cave entrance just as the massive avalanche completely buries the pathway behind him in a cloud of snow. The rumbling of the mountain slowly fades into a heavy, suffocating silence. "Lord Axonon, let's call for help. We can't get out on our own," the mayor urges. "There's no time for that," the Duke snaps, frantically clawing through the thick snow. "It's unavoidable," the Duke mutters grimly, pulling out a glowing red magical talisman from his pocket. He unleashes a powerful magical circle at the blocked cave entrance. "Unauthorized use of magical tools is too dangerous," the mayor warns in panic. "With that sound, another avalanche." But the Duke ignores him, shouting, "Capella! Ka!" The Duke gasps, stepping out of the cave only to find the entire landscape covered in a thick blanket of fresh snow. Suddenly, a rustling sound draws his attention. The Duke rushes forward, screaming in desperation, "Cape!" With a sudden burst, the towering muscular servant emerges from the deep snow, carrying Charla and Rachel to safety. "What a terrible ordeal we've been through," Charla whines dramatically, brushing snow off herself. "Had I known of this happening, I wouldn't have come to the mountains." "Where is my Capella?" the Duke demands, his eyes glowing within a terrifying, murderous aura. "Eek!" Charla squeaks in terror, immediately fleeing to hide behind Rachel while crying, "Rachel!" Rachel stands in cold silence, staring down at Charla with a dark, expressionless look as she clings desperately to his coat. "I apologize deeply, Lord Axonon," the blindfolded servant says, bowing his head respectfully. "Before the avalanche, Charla-sama took Capella-sama to the cliff and pushed her off. The only thing I could do was protect the both of them," the servant explains. Charla gasps in horror, shrieking, "You should not have said that." Suddenly, the little blue bird flies into view, catching the Duke's attention. That is Capella's, he realizes. The blue bird swoops down, tugging on a strand of the Duke's hair to lead him in the right direction. "All right," the Duke says quietly, his expression hardening with resolve as he prepares to follow the bird. "Wait a moment, Lord Axonon," Charla screams, pointing her finger at him. "What will you do without me? I am the lord of this town." "Shut up for a while," Rachel suddenly commands, grabbing Charla's arm with a chilling grip. "Miss Ophelia," Rachel addresses her coldly. Charla gasps, her eyes wide with shock and fear. "Rachel? It's different. It's not like that. I didn't—" Charla stammers frantically, realizing her lies are completely unraveling before his cold gaze. Ignoring her desperate excuses, Rachel turns away, his boots sinking into the snow as he steps forward. High up on the snowy peaks, the Duke leaps off the ledge, rushing down the mountain to rescue his beloved daughter. As he watches from afar, the young pink-haired boy thinks back to his dream, "I wish to be a family member of the Axonons." Watching the Duke dive recklessly down the mountain with the bluebird, the boy's thoughts continue. "More than I thought. You won't get bored for sure." Meanwhile, Capella plummets down the snowy cliff in a helpless fall. Suddenly, the glowing blue talisman her father gave her activates, bursting with a brilliant magical light. Elegant bands of soft blue light quickly wrap around Capella, halting her descent. A powerful, glowing spherical barrier completely encapsulates Capella, safely suspending her in the air. Opening her eyes, Capella groans softly, "Ouch." Stunned, she looks around inside the barrier and realizes it doesn't feel like anything. Intrigued, she reaches out to touch the glowing wall, wondering, what is this membrane? As soon as her finger touches it, the barrier cracks with a loud sound. "Huh?" she gasps as it shatters. "It broke." At the same time, the blue talisman she is wearing begins to crack and shatter. "Huh?" Capella gasps in utter horror as she holds the broken accessory. "Did this break too? What should I do?" she panics, her eyes popping out in sheer terror. "Wasn't this quite expensive?" Reassuring herself, she looks at a small glowing blue fragment. "No matter how much I make my dad struggle, he's very forgiving after all." She then mischievously thinks, "Though watching him struggle with finances is something I would like to see, I should find my way back," Capella says to herself, stepping forward as a chilling wind blows over the snow. Suddenly, a massive explosion of snow erupts directly in front of her. "Eek!" Capella shrieks, shielding her face. She waits in suspense as the thick cloud of snow begins to settle. From above, a small blue bird descends with a cheerful peep. "Rory!" Capella cries happily, raising her arms to welcome the little bird. "Rory, you're safe too," Capella cheers, hugging the blue bird close to her face, while her father's inner thoughts echo, "I can hear Capella's cute voice." "Huh?" Capella mutters, suddenly noticing a strange rustling sound in the snow beneath her. With a burst of snow, the Duke's head pops out. Dad? Capella screams in shock, while her father's inner thoughts cheer, "My Capella, I've come to pick you up." Capella frantically shouts, just a moment, hold on. The Duke emerges fully, looking incredibly serious and sparkling. Capella stammers, trembling with sweat drops as she looks at her father's intense expression. "Are you okay?" she asks, to which her inner voice screams, "Not at all." Ruri lands calmly on Capella's head with a quiet peep as the tension lingers. Finally, the Duke sighs, the wind howling across the vast, snow-covered mountains. "I was able to dig my way out," Capella groans, lying exhausted in the snow. "I apologize," the Duke says, rubbing his arm. "But at this hour, we can't go back to the town anymore." "Let's go then," the Duke says smoothly, picking Capella up in his arms once again. "Again with the carrying?" Capella pouts with puffed cheeks. "Quiet," the Duke commands. "Even if you bite your tongue, I won't care." Suddenly, a sharp pain shoots through his ankle, making him think, it hurts. As they walk through the quiet snow, the Duke's thoughts race. Did I twist my foot when landing? Can I make it to the cave? No, I'll definitely make it. Holding her tightly, his protective instincts take over. I must ensure that Capella stays safe, no matter what. Sensing his ridiculous intensity, Capella deadpans, "Dad's an idiot." Question mark? The Duke hums, looking down. "Did you say something?" His mind immediately begins to wander. Is she cold? Or could it be that she's hungry? If so, I'll hunt down bears and try to roast them for her sake. "It's nothing at all," Capella yells defensively, while staring at him with a sweat drop, thinking, he's really stupid. "We've arrived," the Duke announces as they finally reach a dark cave. "I managed to hold on with my injured foot somehow," he thinks, setting her down. "Stay here for a bit." The Duke takes out 2 dark rocks, striking them together to create brilliant magical sparks. "That's," Capella observes. "What are you doing?" Capella asks curiously, watching as a powerful flame erupts from the stone. "I am making a bonfire," the Duke replies calmly. Warming her hands by the fire, Capella smiles happily. "It's warm." "You should rest for as long as possible," the Duke instructs, sitting back with his arms crossed. "Good," he thinks, pleased to see her comfortable. The Duke looks down at the glowing magical stone, thinking, the magic stone I found just now is worth 50,000 ril. However, compared to Capella's smile, it's pretty cheap. The Duke rejoices. Meanwhile, Capella screams internally, "No, it's ridiculously expensive." "I'm sorry," Capella mutters apologetically, holding out the shattered pieces. "I broke the necklace I borrowed from you." Don't worry about it," the Duke dismisses smoothly. However, his inner voice reveals, that magical tool was only worth 1 million ril. It's really nothing. Looking down at the shattered fragments of the blue talisman, his thoughts continue. It was just a disposable magical tool. "Isn't this the biggest crisis of our lives then?" Capella and her bird shriek in absolute horror, realizing the unimaginable cost. Meanwhile, the Duke's thoughts reveal, and this time it was used without permission. "Humph," the Duke smirks. "However, it's all trivial matters. As long as my Capella is safe, everything else will be all right." Watching him silently, Capella's eyes soften with a gentle blush. How foolish. He's really a fool, she thinks. Gently petting Ruri, Capella smiles warmly. "Just for my sake. He does really stupid things." "Hey, Dad," Capella speaks up, looking at him with a serious expression. "Do you love me?" A heavy silence fills the cave as the Duke turns his head to look back at her shimmering red eyes. "Don't ask such a foolish question," the Duke replies coolly, turning away, while his inner voice screams with exploding hearts. "Of course, I love you very, 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 very much." That was so stupid, Capella thinks to herself as she watches Ruri fly ahead. "If I didn't hear your inner voice, I'm sure I would have been depressed." However, "Your mother loved you as well," her father's gentle words echo in her mind, causing her crimson eyes to widen in surprise. "During the days when you were about to be born, her face was always gleaming with anticipation," the Duke recalls softly. "I still remember it very well." "I never heard of any of this in my previous life," Capella reflects, realizing how much she truly missed back then. "Though I must admit that," Capella stammered, "I hardly knew anything about your mother." "I couldn't even leave behind proper portraits of her," the Duke says with a bittersweet smile. "Your mother and I even considered eloping." Capella's eyes widen as she gasps, "Huh?" "She was the daughter of a commoner, so there was a massive difference in our social statuses," the Duke explains. "It was quite troublesome, but I eventually got our marriage recognized." At that time, we also deduced that you were already in her belly. Hearing this, Capella and Ruri blush furiously as she squeals, "Wow, so passionate!" The atmosphere suddenly turns heavy and ominous as the Duke stares downward. I am called the Duke of Death because I killed everyone, your mother, your grandparents, your uncle, and everyone else. It was all my doing, he mutters grimly, his face shrouded in deep guilt, when suddenly a blue bird swoops in. What? The Duke stammers in surprise as Ruri frantically flaps around his head. Are you hungry?
The magical campfire crackles warmly in the middle of the dark, chilly cave.
Shall I look for some food? The Duke asks, walking forward despite his injury. But as he takes a step, a sharp, throbbing pain shoots through his ankle, while his inner voice softly thinks, Capella must be hungry too. Damn it, the Duke groans, his leg completely giving out as he loses his balance and stumbles forward. With a heavy thud, the towering Duke collapses, falling directly into Capella's small arms. Capella? The Duke gasps in disbelief. In her heart, Capella wonders, does the Duke of Death really want to kill me too? She asks herself, staring down at him with her glowing crimson eyes. The Duke's eyes widen in sheer shock, completely paralyzed by the heartbreaking question. Perhaps that may indeed happen in the future, the Duke thinks grimly, turning away as dark feathers flutter around him. But his true inner feelings leak out. I don't want such a future to happen. I utterly abhor it. Dad, you're trembling, Capella says softly, noticing the subtle shaking of his broad shoulders. Before he can answer, Ruri suddenly spreads his wings and flies out into the open winter night, drawing their attention. Ruri? Capella cries out in surprise, watching the bluebird soar away. Ruri, wait! If you go out on your own, Capella shouts, rushing after the bird into the snowy night. Wow, Capella gasps in pure wonder as she steps outside. The night sky is painted with a breathtaking, glowing aurora. It's so beautiful. Elise and I have come to see it once before, the Duke says quietly, standing behind her. Capella looks back, whispering, Mother and you? It's pleasing, the Duke murmurs softly, looking down at his daughter, that I am getting to see it with you, too. Honestly, I wanted to see it with the three of us together. The Duke's true heartbreaking wish echoes in Capella's mind. She stares up at his melancholic face and calls out softly, Hey, Dad. My desire for revenge against you still lurks deep within me, Capella reflects as she gazes at the glowing sky. I don't think I'll ever be able to forget what happened in my past life. But after listening to your true heart, my feelings have changed just a little bit. Dad, she says, stepping closer to him, I'm really sorry, but I can't read that back for you. If you're feeling this way, please know that there's help available. You can connect with people who care and want to support you by calling or texting 988 anytime for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. There is hope, and you don't have to go through this alone. Just what? The Duke mutters, completely frozen by her baffling words. I want to surprise you, and I want to completely destroy that calm, composed face of yours, Capella thinks mischievously. Just why did our future turn out like that in my previous life? I still don't know the truth. Which is why I want to become much stronger. So when that time comes, I won't just stand by and let myself be killed, she declares proudly. That is exactly what I want my revenge to be, she thinks, grinning triumphantly. Be prepared, my Reaper father. Under the shimmering winter sky, the silent mountains hold their secrets as the night slowly passes. Inside the cozy cave, the Duke and Capella sit side by side, warming themselves by the crackling campfire. Sue, Sue, Capella snores softly, finally drifting off into a peaceful sleep against her father's shoulder. I can't believe that Capella would say such a thing, the Duke thinks, his heart overflowing with a mix of shock and affection. I won't let myself be killed. I won't lose to the scary Duke of Death. Be prepared, Reaper father. Recalling her bold declaration, the Duke can't help but smile, thinking, Reaper father, huh? When you call me that, even the Grim Reaper seems charming, he whispers softly, gently poking her soft, warm cheek. Aren't you afraid of me either? The Duke chuckles, gently stroking the little blue bird on his shoulder. Ruri chirps back happily, pee. Surrounded by a gentle, warm light, the family of three rests peacefully in the quiet mountain cave. The next morning, the sun rises over the grand mansion of Albitran Town. Tucked under a cozy white blanket, Capella continues to sleep soundly in a warm, luxurious bed. Waking up with a big stretch, Capella blinks her eyes open, looking around the unfamiliar room. She mutters, noticing the crackling fireplace. Ruri, Capella gasps as the bluebird flies toward her. This isn't our house, is it? That's right, we got lost in the mountains, and while I was talking with Dad, I got incredibly sleepy. Capella realizes in utter panic, sprinting down the hallway. So I've been sleeping like a baby all this time? Isn't that way too nerve-wracking? So the cause this time? Capella thinks, her eyes wide as she pauses in the hallway. This voice is, Dad! Capella yells, slamming open the doors. Hearing her, the Duke turns to see her. You've finally woken up, he replies calmly, while his inner voice is bursting with joy. It feels so good to see my Capella being alive and well. Running toward him, she asks frantically, Dad, is your leg okay? To which he hums, Keep your delusions in your dreams, the Duke says aloud. But inside his head, he's swooning. Did she notice my injury? This is the power of love. Seeing his bizarre reaction, Capella sweat drops, thinking, that's not the case, probably. Standing amidst a flurry of roses, Capella blushes with embarrassment, thinking, it's not like hearing Dad's inner voice is due to some power of love. Ruri looks up at her with a questioning chirp, completely puzzled by her behavior. Stepping back into reality, Capella peers into the room, her expression growing tense. Is everyone gathered here? She wonders. A shadowy, sinister smile spreads across the face of a guest, casting a dark, scheming atmosphere over the meeting room. You've arrived quite early, the Duke notes with a chilly glare, addressing the smirking man before him. Lord Ophelia. You know, Capella calls out eagerly, rushing toward the young girl. Please, I want you to heal Dad's leg. Well, of course, but starts, glancing nervously toward Lord Ophelia's cold glare. I came here to treat you when I heard you were lost. Capella smiles warmly, holding Yuno's hands. It's okay, I'm fine thanks to Dad. Hearing her say this, a feather of pure bliss tickles the Duke's head as his inner voice swoons. Thanks to Dad? Now please, then your foot, Capella urges, turning back to her father. But before Yuno can start casting her healing magic, the Duke interrupts. Before that, I want to go back to our previous discussion. The Duke's expression turns terrifyingly cold, emitting an overwhelming dark pressure. During the avalanche, he demands, what was Capella doing at the bottom of the cliff? I need an answer. It was just, the young maid Charla stammers in absolute terror, sweating profusely under his terrifying gaze, while Lord Ophelia lets out a dry, forced laugh. Ha ha ha! The children find your glare scary, Lord Axanon, Lord Ophelia chuckles smoothly, placing a hand on Charla's shoulder as she trembles in fear. I received the report as well. It seems to be an unfortunate accident that occurred when the children were playing. As Capella seems fine now, Lord Ophelia dismisses. Hearing this blatant lie, Capella gasps in disbelief. Huh? He continues smoothly. Don't fret about the details. It was a good opportunity for both families to interact. But Capella has had enough. Slamming her hands on the table, she points directly at the trembling maid and screams, Charla pushed me down! Staring at them with fiercely glowing crimson eyes, Capella grits her teeth. I refuse to accept this lying down, she screams internally. If this was done intentionally by Charla, Capella begins, standing tall at the table, how will you take responsibility, Lord Ophelia? Her cold words sending a visible shiver down the noble spine. You're quite a bold lady, Lord Ophelia remarks with a mocking smile. Unfazed, Capella brushes her hair back gracefully. According to what I've heard, this town of Albitran, she says, had its authority delegated as a reward for when Yuno saved me in the past. She recalls as a memory of a younger Yuno healing a critically injured girl flashes in her mind. Isn't that right? The Duke stares down at his daughter in surprise, his inner voice wondering, why is she? Meanwhile, Capella smirks confidently, fully prepared to play her hand. If the reward for saving my life is a territory, then surely the compensation for almost taking my life would also be a territory, Capella reasons out loud. Turning to her father with an adorable clinging hug, she chirps, Dad, I've come to like this town. Thinking of this place, Albitran, and the villagers who welcomed us on the way here, Capella pumps her fists with a bright, greedy smile. I want all of it. I really do, she declares. Capella, you, the Duke mutters, completely stunned by his daughter's bold territorial demands. While her father assumes she's doing this for the sake of the people who pleaded with me about their hardships, Capella's true thoughts reveal, that's not it. This territory is honestly a bonus. The one who picked a fight first was them. If someone starts a fight with me, I'll make sure to see it till the end. Ha ha ha, you're quite a talkative young lady. What you say is reasonable, however. Lord Ophelia chuckles, looming over Capella with an imposing aura. Capella? He questions. Is there anyone who witnessed Charla pushing you? Lord Ophelia asks, his eyes gleaming with malicious confidence as Charla and her guards stand smugly in the background. If so, Lord Ophelia sneers, leaning in close with a menacing grin, tell us.
Who will testify that she pushed you off the cliff? Lord Ophelia goads, gesturing to the silent grand dining table. Is there anyone there? Clenching her fists, Capella looks down in frustration. That is, she thinks. A grim silence fills her mind as she recalls there was a guard there, too. He was Charla's bodyguard, Capella grumbles, glancing at the blindfolded giant. He wouldn't testify against his own side. It's so infuriating, she fumes, puffing her cheeks in anger. Suddenly, a large, reassuring hand is placed gently on Capella's shoulder, instantly calming her raging thoughts. As the Duke steps forward, his gentle thoughts comfort her. Capella, you did well. Leave the rest to your dad. In that case, he speaks aloud, unleashing a terrifying, crackling purple aura of pure malice. Shall we take testimony from each person? Capella panics internally, screaming, You're being reckless. Your aura is leaking everywhere. Under the oppressive, crackling weight of the Duke's murderous intent, Yuno stands quietly, her expression unreadable as she contemplates the situation. Excuse me for a moment, Yuno says softly, stepping up to the towering, blindfolded bodyguard. She leans in and whispers something in his ear, causing the giant guard to gulp in sudden shock. Taking a heavy step forward, the bodyguard's boots thud against the wooden floor. I will do it, he announces solemnly to the shocked room. I will testify. Pushed Miss Capella off the cliff, the guard confesses, sending shockwaves through the room. Charla's eyes widen in absolute horror, and she drops her teacup in shock. The avalanche was, of course, an unfortunate accident, the guard continues. However, the guard declares firmly, gesturing back to Yuno, when the avalanche happened, Miss Capella was out of my reach. It was undoubtedly Charla's harassment that caused that. You? Do you understand what you're saying? Charla screams hysterically, slamming her hands on the table as she confronts the giant. You are my bodyguard. For you to testify against me? Charla's eyes glow with an unsettling reptilian yellow light as she snarls with pure hatred. Just like my sister, neither you nor her will get away with this. Father, Charla suddenly whimpers, flinching as a terrifying green aura flares up behind her. She slowly turns around to see Lord Ophelia smiling down at her, his face contorted with quiet fury. Ophelia, let's talk business, Yuno says, stepping forward with a pleasant, businesslike smile. I quite like this guard, Yuno continues smoothly, gesturing to the silent giant behind her. Let me buy him off you. What can a child? Lord Ophelia sneers. But Yuno smoothly cuts him off, pulling out a sealed document. Indeed, I may be a child. However, my father runs the Gold Sky Trading Company. That Gold Sky? Capella and Ruri scream internally, their jaws dropping in utter disbelief at the massive revelation. 5 years ago, he inherited the title of Baron, a voice echoes, as an image of a wealthy, gold-coated baron throwing money around appears. As the Duke's analytical inner thoughts leak out, he has already given enough money to his son. Capella rejoices in relief. For once, Dad's voice is coming in handy. If this amount isn't enough, Yuno proposes with a sweet but threatening smile, waving the trading document, should I invite my father over for a proper business discussion? Lord Ophelia breaks out in a cold sweat, stammering, in that case? Bending down into a deep, humiliating bow before the Duke, Lord Ophelia stammers, for my daughter's harassment. My daughter is such a wild horse, Lord Ophelia sweat drops, trying to save face while Charla fumes in the background. Shall we call it a truce with just us providing treatment for your feet free of charge? But the Duke dismisses him coldly, saying, I don't care about the treatment. The Duke thinks, but creating a debt here will ensure Capella's safety in the future. Seeing her father about to compromise, Capella cuts in loudly, shouting, Please wait a moment. Slamming her hand onto the table, Capella demands fiercely, the magical tools my father used to help me? Who will pay for it? Pointing up as Ruri flies overhead. I won't compromise. I estimate, Capella begins, raising a single finger to command the room's attention. The total to be around 1 million reals, she announces dramatically, slamming her hand down as the room gasps. And it was an unauthorized usage. I might blabber all the details too, Capella threatens with a sweet but mocking smile, peering through the frosty window. To Prince Oberon. After all, she thinks, raising a playful finger to trace a design in the frost. He's my beloved fiancé, Capella chirps happily, drawing a sweet heart containing their faces on the fogged-up window glass. To whom Prince Oberon might tell this afterward. Is something I wouldn't know anyway, she hums merrily, skipping away while leaving a thoroughly defeated and trembling Lord Ophelia clutching his face in sheer despair. I understand, Lord Ophelia stammers, breaking out in a cold sweat under her ruthless pressure. The rights to the territory entrusted to us by the Axonon family, Lord Ophelia mutters reluctantly, his pride completely shattered. We will be returning them, he concedes. Meanwhile, Capella celebrates her massive victory with a bright smile, while her father watches her in deep admiration, his inner voice swooning. Capella, this child really. As his daughter flashes a confident peace sign alongside a chirping Ruri, the Duke's inner thoughts swell with pride. Unlike me, she knows no fear. Standing outside in the snow, the young pink-haired boy addresses the Duke. I will wait with Lord Ophelia for my father's arrival. Watching him walk away, the Duke wonders, was it really okay to act so selfishly? Even with all this, I still have no intention of deciding on adopting you. Capella tilts her head, completely puzzled. Until now, the boy speaks softly, his eyes hidden behind his bangs. Just because my father ordered me to, he continues, reflecting on his complex situation as he stands beside the Duke in the snow. I thought I was going to be adopted by the Axonon family. Remembering the treacherous snowy mountain where the Duke had fallen, Capella recalls the chaotic moment her father slid down a cliff with Ruri chirping frantically in panic. But now, the boy declares with a gentle, blush-filled smile, looking directly at the Duke and Capella, I want to become a part of your family. Startled by the sudden confession, Capella gasps as Ruri flies away in surprise, shedding blue feathers in her wake. Ruri? Ruri! Capella cries out, reaching after the blue bird while the young boy watches her with a warm smile. Also, I hope we get to see each other again, the boy says, turning to leave. I'll be looking forward to it. An elegant transition screen reads, the next day, in the evening, a soft purple glow shines down as a voice calls out, Rachel! Quite a large amount of money was moved by you without permission, a wealthy merchant notes. Facing away with a sharp, mysterious gaze, the pink-haired boy replies smoothly, Don't worry, I won't let you suffer any loss, father. Leaning out of the carriage window with a bright smile, Capella cheers happily. It's been a while, I'm finally home. The young lady is acting improperly, the Duke sighs calmly, while Capella happily waves her hands, shouting, Grace! Looking out the window, Capella eagerly takes in the view of her massive home, while the Duke sits quietly beside her, his expression soft and warm. Although her father sits with a stoic expression, his inner thoughts are bursting with dramatic affection. Although many things happened during the trip, my dear Capella was truly, truly admirable the whole time. Sweat dropping, Capella decides to ignore his loud inner voice. Suddenly, a tickle in her nose cuts her thoughts short. Achoo, she sneezes loudly, sniffling as her father stares at her in sudden shock. Ugh, Capella groans miserably, tucked in bed with a cool, damp compress resting on her feverish forehead. Looks like you caught a mild cold, the Duke notes with a worried frown. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Meanwhile, his inner voice screams in absolute distress. Ah, my dear Capella, do you have a death wish? I'm sorry for making you work too hard. Capella lets out a weak cough. Master, the head maid Grace interrupts gently. Please leave the rest of the care to me. Hearing this, a terrifyingly dark pressure instantly flares around the Duke's face. Emitting a menacing purple aura, the Duke's inner thoughts fume. But I want to take care of her. I hate having such a capable maid. Just when can I fire her? Sweating profusely, Capella panics internally. How heartless he is to fire her for this reason. Realizing she needs to step in, Capella thinks, I have no choice. Reaching out, she weakly tugs on her father's sleeve. Papa! Surprised, he mutters, Capella, the Duke says softly, turning back to look at his sick daughter. I want to eat the bread porridge you made, Capella requests with a sweet, pleading look, sending a massive shockwave of adoration directly through her father's heart. It can't be helped, the Duke stammers, quickly turning his head to hide his blushing face. After all, you're a daughter who requires a lot of care. As her father dramatically sweeps out of the room to start cooking, the bewildered head maid asks, Does the Duke ever try to cook? Capella sweat drops, sighing, Who knows? Shall I secretly prepare a replacement for you without telling the Duke? Grace giggles, leaning over the bed. Meanwhile, a memory flashes of a panicked maid screaming as the Duke completely wrecks the kitchen. Grace teasingly wonders, Were you hiding your sickness for the Duke's sake? As expected, Miss Capella thinks of him as a father, Grace teases with a knowing smirk, sending Capella into a blushing, flustered frenzy. You got the wrong idea, she stammers. My fever went up, I think, Capella squeals, pulling the blanket over her head as she coughs. I have to sleep. You should leave, Grace. Grace simply giggles. Foo-foo. I understand. Jeez, Capella grumbles from under her covers, puffing her cheeks in embarrassment while Ruri chirps on her head. Because of you, Papa, I don't have the time to relax. Suddenly, the bedroom door clicks open and a maid announces, "You have a guest." "I think I'm getting better," Capella murmurs, stretching her arms. Suddenly she pauses. Wait, Lori isn't here. But before she can think further, a voice bellows through the hallways. "Capella!" The bedroom doors burst open with a loud slam as a frantic, golden-haired boy charges inside, leaving the panicked maids crying out, "Ah, don't barge in like this, Your Highness!" "Prince Oberon, you know!" Capella gasps in shock as the young prince rushes to her bedside. "I heard you got sick immediately after returning," he yells, panting. "I can't just sit still." "Is it serious? How are you feeling?" Oberon demands, leaning in incredibly close to her face. Flustered, Capella squeals, "Your Highness!" Shrinking back, Capella stammers, "I haven't been able to take a bath at all. Please don't come near me." Misunderstanding her reaction, Oberon nods gravely. "Of course, you're in a bad state, aren't you?" Capella blushes furiously, screaming, "That's not it." "Your Highness," Yuno chuckles softly, stepping up beside him. "You're aware that Capella is a girl, right? It's only natural for her to look beautiful in front of the gentleman she likes, doesn't she?" She winks playfully. "You're right. The gentleman she likes, huh?" Oberon stammers, his face turning a bright red. Meanwhile, Capella rejoices internally, as expected from Yuno. But it would be better if she gave another excuse. Gently brushing a strand of hair behind Capella's ear, Yuno smiles warmly. "It seems your fever went down. I think there is no need for me to help you." "That's not true," Capella denies quickly, her face turning red. Holding her hands close to her chest amidst a flurry of blooming roses, Capella beams happily. "I'm so happy Yuno came to pay me a visit." If that's the case, I'm glad," Yuno replies, her gentle smile carrying a touch of relief. The lady sighs softly, turning her back to the young prince. "Then," she says gently, "I should take my leave." Capella blinks in surprise. "Eh?" With a bright, sweet smile surrounded by blooming white lilies, the lady chuckles, "I can't afford to interfere between lovers who just got reunited, can I?" This sends Capella into an absolute panic, screaming internally, "Lovers?" "Get well soon, Capella," she calls out with a warm smile as she walks away, leaving a completely stunned Capella sitting in her bed. The massive double doors click shut as the elegant lady quietly exits the room. Meanwhile, down in the kitchen, a chaotic scene unfolds. Ruri flies frantically in the air, chirping in sheer terror as a bubbling pot of mysterious purple liquid boils violently on the stove. "Watch out," the Duke says calmly, waving his hand as Ruri panics above him. Holding a ladle over the glowing purple concoction, he mutters in deep confusion, "It's strange." Outside the kitchen door, the butler, chef, and maids watch in utter terror, trembling with cold sweat. "How did it turn this way?" the butler stammers. Meanwhile, the Duke sighs wearily, clutching his forehead as he looks at the ruined stove. At times like this, a memory of his late wife flashes in his mind, her holding a warm, perfectly made bowl of bread porridge with a gentle, glowing smile. If only that person was here. Gritting his teeth in frustration, the Duke grips his ladle tightly as a menacing dark aura flares around him. "Damn it! Why am I doing this?" the Duke fumes, leaning over the messy stove in absolute frustration. Ready to give up on his failed culinary attempt, he grumbles under his breath until a sudden chirp interrupts him. Ruri lands near a basket of freshly baked bread, chirping softly to draw his attention. The Duke pauses, looking down at the little blue bird. "Geez," the Duke sighs, crossing his arms with a slight pout. "Are you telling me to try again?" Ruri hops happily as a gentle breeze blows, and a small smile finally appears on the Duke's face. Reaching out to grab a loaf of fresh bread, the Duke mutters, "What a troublesome bird!" Meanwhile, Ruri chirps happily, practically glowing with joy. Suddenly, a voice echoes through the doorway. "Duke Axanon?" The Duke turns his head to find the Saint standing there, flanked by the terrified kitchen staff. "Saint of Ophelia?" the Duke asks coldly. "Are you done paying Capella a visit?" "Yes," she replies, holding a sealed letter in her hand. "I would leave that matter to your grace." Handing the letter over, she says, "I am here as the messenger of the Lord." The Duke stares down at the sealed document with a stoic expression. Back in the bedroom, Prince Oberon stands at the foot of Capella's bed, looking at her with a gentle expression. "So," Capella stammers, blushing as she holds her hand out, "Your Majesty, why don't you take a seat as well?" Blushing slightly, Oberon smiles. You're right. But instead of sitting on the chair, he hops directly onto her bed, causing her to scream in panic. I mean, not there. Staring at the young prince, Capella thinks wearily, kids are always like this. Suddenly, the narrative shifts. 3 years later, Oberon raises 3 fingers, asking her eagerly, Capella, where do you want to go? Maybe school? Capella's eyes widen in sheer confusion as she mutters, I heard you are really smart. Oberon beams, reaching his hand out as a grand golden cathedral looms in the background. So I'll try to study harder too. How about we enroll in Hercules Academy together? Capella stares at him in complete shock. Before I reincarnated, I attended, Capella recalls, clutching her bedsheets tightly, Virgo Girls Boarding Academy, a girls-only boarding school focused on noble education, she remembers, envisioning rows of strict noble girls and her father working diligently at his desk. Because I followed Papa's wishes, I had to study far away in a dormitory, Capella recalls, her expression darkening. Thinking back, ever since I started living in the dorms, my relationship with Papa worsened. But then she remembers Oberon's words. Hercules Academy is closer to Capella's home, so we'll be studying there for 3 years, Oberon cheers enthusiastically, raising his hands in a sparkling, dazzling aura, and we can spend time together every day. Blinded by his sheer radiance, Capella shields her eyes, groaning, Ugh, he's too dazzling. But I'm sure, Capella worries, clutching her blanket to her chin, Papa will definitely insist that I enroll in a boarding school, she mutters reluctantly. What are you talking about? Oberon asks, tilting his head in confusion. Rather, I don't think Duke Corvus will allow Capella to go. Capella gasps softly, holding her pillow close. So my mother already predicted that I'd face difficulties in the future? She sweats nervously as Oberon pouts. What kind of education did he receive from the queen? If your father opposes it, Oberon murmurs, clenching his hands together tightly. I'll help you convince them, okay? Oberon promises with a brilliant, sparkling smile, leaning in incredibly close. Capella's face turns bright red as she panics internally. Too close. Before she can react, she squeals and pushes him back, causing him to yelp in surprise. Falling backward onto the bed, she blushes furiously, her face completely crimson while the prince laughs cheerfully. Wait, that's just... The scene transitions, showing a quick spin of her dress as she leaps through the air. I'm back! Capella cheers happily, spinning around her spacious bedroom with Ruri flying beside her. For that, I need to prepare, Capella thinks determinedly, as Ruri chirps in agreement. How about we enroll in Hercules Academy together? Oberon's voice echoes in her mind once more. The school Prince Oberon also attended in my past life, Capella notes, looking at the Grand Castle. The most prestigious elite school in this country, claiming to be the birthplace of heroes, a co-ed school attended by the royal family and outstanding noble heirs. I want to study there with Prince Oberon, but before Papa has the chance to reject me, my abilities aren't good enough yet, Capella thinks with a sweat drop, happily throwing her hands in the air at her desk while her tutor groans in exhaustion in the background. Suddenly, Ruri flaps its wings right in her face, interrupting her thoughts with loud chirps. And I have the knowledge and experience from my past life, she declares, clenching her fist with newfound resolve. Sliding the dining room door open, Capella calls out softly, Papa. Sitting at the long dining table, sipping his tea, the Duke turns his sharp gaze toward her. You've been standing there for a while. You just recovered. You should be resting more. Standing tall with determination, Capella declares loudly, I want to enroll in Hercules Academy. The Duke freezes mid-sip, his eyes widening in surprise. Papa? Capella asks softly. Meanwhile, the Duke stares down at his reflection in his teacup, surrounded by falling feathers as his inner voice worries, I'm happy I can stay with Capella, but what if I end up putting her in danger again? Staring at her silent, brooding father, Capella pouts with a sweat drop. Are you as weak as the Reaper of the Past again? I just declared my determination. A heavy, dark aura settles over the Duke as his inner voice grumbles. I hate having a rival with no spirit. Stepping forward with a bright, sparkling smile, Capella beams. I once said I wanted to become stronger, right? So I'll study hard so that I can help Papa when I grow up. A massive shockwave of adoration instantly pierces straight through the Duke's heart, leaving him sweating and clutching his chest. In that case, for now, how about we call a private tutor? Duke Axanon suggests, adjusting his glasses. Meanwhile, Capella sweats nervously, thinking, that was too easy. If they suit you, then, the Duke adds, glancing at her. Capella blinks in surprise, a giant red question mark appearing over her head as she wonders who her father has in mind. The scene dramatically focuses on the striking, voluptuous figure of a beautiful woman in a purple dress as she makes her grand entrance. My name is Maribel, the stunning pink-haired lady announces with a dazzling smile. From now on, I will be your tutor. Capella blushes, completely overwhelmed by her presence. This person is my private tutor? She looks suspicious. But a dark box notes, she's an alumna of Hercules Academy. After graduating, she married the late Lord Recall, the Duke explains, introducing Maribel to Capella and Yuno in the drawing room. A former ruler of the borderlands, the narration continues, depicting the harsh, dry terrain and a melancholy Maribel. She worked hard managing the territory, but after her husband passed away, she felt like she no longer belonged. Listening to this, Capella tilts her head, thinking, Lord Recall? Turning to the children, Maribel smiles warmly. Let's start by learning about the current state of the world, shall we? Meanwhile, Yuno curtsies politely. Well then, Duke Axanon, Lady Maribel, I'll excuse myself, Yuno says gently, bowing her head, so I don't disturb Capella's study time. Why? Capella gasps, rushing forward and grabbing Yuno's hand in front of the window. Yuno, you should study with me too. Yuno replies softly, but I only came to introduce Lady Maribel. Looking at her friend with soft, sparkling eyes, Yuno whispers, Capella, study hard so you can enter Hercules Academy. Yuno, Capella mutters, squeezing her hand tightly. 3 years from now, where will you be studying? Recalling her past life, Capella thinks, in my previous life, he and I studied at Virgo Girls Boarding Academy. If I choose a different school, holding her hand to her chest, Yuno smiles serenely. I'm sure my father-in-law has already prepared the best path for me. Suddenly, Capella pulls Yuno into a tight embrace, making Yuno gasp in surprise. Yuno, let's study together, Capella cheers, turning to her father with wide, pleading eyes. Is that okay, Papa? Duke Axanon glances at Maribel, muttering, I don't mind, but... Smiling warmly, Maribel chimes in, I agree as well. Wrapping her arms around both girls amidst blooming daisies, Maribel says happily, studying with friends will motivate Lady Capella even more. I'll also inform Lord Ophelia about this, Maribel adds gently, looking down at Yuno. Isn't that right, Yuno? Capella blinks, sweat dropping as she finds herself right next to Maribel's ample chest. Meanwhile, Yuno holds Capella's hand, murmuring softly, This is a surprise for me. With wide, sparkling blue eyes, Yuno asks gently, But are you sure, Capella? Of course, Yuno. Capella beams with a huge, joyful grin as Ruri chirps happily on her shoulder. In the background, the Duke and Maribel watch the girls' adorable friendship with quiet interest. The study desk is neatly arranged with stacks of textbooks, open sheets of parchment, and a sealed recommendation letter, signaling the start of their lessons. Clasping her hands together with a sparkling smile, Maribel cheers, Let's learn more about Raqqa Borderlands. Spreading out a large map on the coffee table, Maribel explains, Recall Borderlands is where I got married after I graduated from Hercules Academy. Just like its name, it is indeed a border of the country. If you go southway from here, it'll take about a week to reach there using a carriage. Pointing to a castle labeled Albatran, Capella gasps, Ah, I went to this place before. Maribel beams, Albatran just recently got restored by the House of Axanon, right? A flashback shows the townspeople looking weary but grateful. People have been talking about how the tax rates have decreased momentarily. Capella smiles proudly, resting her chin on her hand. Papa is actually acting like a proper duke for once. Clapping her hands together, Maribel calls out, Let's get back to the topic. Raqqa Borderlands was a poor land up until a few years ago, Maribel explains calmly. It rarely rains, so it's difficult to grow crops. There are no minerals there. The sea isn't even close. A beautifully detailed piece of lace embroidery fills the screen. However, since a long time ago, the embroidery from that place has been amazing. A flashback shows Maribel showing a book of designs to her late husband. That's why I continue on supplying the lace embroidery for the high society. I keep on convincing my late husband to support the workers. That was the exact thing I did. Despite that, people keep telling me I made a huge achievement. Maribel giggles bashfully, touching her cheek. How embarrassing. Capella stares in awe, muttering, Whoa. Is lace so expensive? It's such a small thing, Capella asks. Yuno explains, I heard a dress made of full lace can buy an entire castle alone. That much? Capella gasps. Another scene shows ladies admiring the quality. Besides, the lace from Recall has high quality. The Ophelia house has been collecting them for some time. The dress you're wearing now has Raqqa lace on it, Capella, Yuno points out, gesturing to the sparkly hem of Capella's skirt. Oh? Capella gasps in shock. Capella panics internally, sweating buckets. That means this dress is so expensive. Meanwhile, Yuno smiles gently. Capella, you're always wearing a high-quality dress, as expected from the beloved daughter of the Duke. Capella just stands there, completely speechless. But you're amazing, Capella declares, her eyes sparkling with pure admiration. That's a perspective only women could have. You're so cool. Maribel blinks in surprise. Eh? Sweat dropping in guilt, Capella thinks, I'm sorry for underestimating you as just your chest. Maribel's lips curl into a soft, genuine smile, touched by the young girl's sincere praise. Shall I talk about how I promote the laces? Maribel giggles happily. Capella cheers. Sure. Later, Capella sits by the dining room window thinking happily, Tutor Maribel is amazing. And then there was also a locally consumed tea, so they deliberately sold only a small amount of it. Capella rambles enthusiastically to her father at the dinner table. Therefore, a lot of nobles are interested by its scarcity that they paid a lot of money. Duke Axonon sips his wine, listening quietly. Setting his glass down on the table, the Duke murmurs, Both of you have chemistry, hmm? Capella tilts her head in confusion. Chemistry? Do you like her, Capella? The Duke asks. Yes, Capella replies cheerfully. I think she's a good tutor. Suddenly, a tense silence falls over the dining room. Capella freezes, her expression turning blank in confusion. Eh? Perhaps if she became your mother, you can be happy, the Duke says calmly. Ruri's eyes pop wide in shock, while Capella's expression darkens instantly as she grits her teeth. Slam! A violent shockwave echoes through the room as Capella slams her hands onto the table. Leaning forward with a terrifyingly fierce glare, Capella demands, What do you mean? Ruri sweats nervously in fear. With Maribel's image floating in the background, the Duke explains stoically, She was introduced as my marriage partner. If you've taken a liking to her, I think it would be okay if things proceed this way. I don't like it, Capella screams at the top of her lungs. Stunned by her explosive reaction, the Duke stares at her blankly. Didn't you say you like her? You got the wrong idea, Capella fumes, panting heavily. I meant I don't like you. The Duke stares at her in stunned silence. The Duke's jaw literally drops as his cool facade completely shatters, while Capella huffs. She's acting like a grown-up, his inner voice whimpers. His true nature came out involuntarily. A bright, dramatic light flares behind Capella as the tension in the room reaches its boiling point. Glaring at him with absolute disdain, Capella points out, For someone to be my mother, she has to be your wife as well, right? That's for sure. Are you letting such an important thing for a kid as me to decide? The Duke looks away awkwardly, completely defeated. Duke Axonon thinks to himself, If you have a mother, you won't have to be inconvenienced. If I can't be there for you like last time? The dark thoughts consume him further. You'll encounter many dangers ahead. Capella stares at her father, completely baffled by his bizarre logic. Underneath her anger, Capella fumes. Yet again, this person is being ridiculous. Meanwhile, the Duke awkwardly continues, Also, when you reach adulthood, it will be hard for you to talk things out with a man like me. I have Grace, Capella interrupts, startling Grace, who squeaks, Me? It's true she's capable of it, the Duke sighs, but it's a different story to have a mother. Clenching her teeth, Capella glares up at him in absolute fury. You? Coward, Capella shrieks, completely losing her temper. She grabs her glass and splashes the drink right into the Duke's face. Just do whatever you want, Capella screams, storming off in tears as Ruri flies after her. Behind her, the Duke sits frozen, dripping with juice. Drenched and utterly stunned, the Duke sits in silence, a glass balanced precariously on his head. Capella is mad, he wonders blankly. Capella stomps up the stairs, screaming in her head, Stupid, stupid, a new mother for me? There was no such thing in my previous life. Didn't I have a mother who risked her life to give birth to me? She remembers sadly. Does Papa still love her even now? Slamming her bedroom door shut, Capella collapses onto her bed and buries her face in a pillow. Papa is stupid. A mother only for my sake. There is no way I can be happy with that, she thinks, sobbing softly. Ruri watches her, whimpering in sympathy. As Capella cries herself to sleep, the Duke stands outside her window under the moonlight, looking up with a look of deep, quiet regret. Sitting at his desk, Duke Axonon recalls Capella's angry words. Holding a quill, his inner voice whispers, It makes me happy to see you care so much about me, but what if something happens to me? Looking down at a paper, he worries, Such a young child. How can such a small child survive alone? Just then, a soft chirp cuts through his brooding thoughts. Ruri hops onto his desk and drops a branch of bright red berries. The Duke blinks in surprise. A gift? I guess this is edible for humans too. Taking a bite, the Duke's eyes pop wide as his face puckers up. This is so sour. Chuckling softly, he takes off his glasses. Seriously, thanks to this, I feel refreshed. Patting Ruri gently, he resolves, Capella, from now on... The next morning, a heavy, silent tension fills the dining room as Capella and her father eat breakfast. Capella chews her food with an aggressive, sullen pout, refusing to look at him. Glancing at her, the Duke thinks warmly, Capella is mad. How cute. But noticing his amused expression, Capella fumes internally. Why are you happy about that? I really don't get him. Slamming her fork down, Capella stands up. Thank you for the meal. I have a lesson today, so until my tutor arrives, I'll study on my own first. Meanwhile, the Duke happily sips his tea. Haha, I never thought I'd see the day where I could argue with my child. Humph, Capella huffs, stomping out of the dining room with Ruri trailing close behind. Clenching her fists, Capella makes up her mind. Now that it's come to this, I'll expose Maribel's true nature. All right, Capella cheers, raising her hand high in the study. Miss Maribel, what do you think about my father? Maribel blinks in absolute confusion. Huh? Swooning with roses in the background, Maribel blushes deeply. He's an incredible man. I've never met a man as amazing as him before. Watching her, Capella sweat drops. Is he really that amazing? Just then, a soft tapping sound echoes from the door, drawing Capella's attention. Excuse me, Duke Axanon says, stepping into the study amidst a dramatic backdrop of blue roses. I came to check on her condition. Capella immediately glares at him with dead, unblinking eyes. Sweeping her eyes over him, Capella analyzes her father. His legs, so long. His body is slender too, and he's quite tall. Plus, he's only 28 years old, and his face is handsome and flawless. Feeling her intense gaze, the Duke asks, "What is it? Do I have something on my face? Do you already miss me, even though we were only apart for a little while?" His inner voice teases. Capella groans internally. I've only not seen his face for 3 hours. It's nothing, Capella barks, turning away with her arms crossed. The Duke's inner voice coos, how cute. If I'm interrupting your lesson, I'll leave, the Duke offers. Maribel quickly beams, of course not, there's no problem. Hiding behind her textbook, Capella watches them closely. If it's about finding a mother for me, I don't really mind. But could today's lesson actually be finding a new wife? Leaning in, Yuno whispers to her, they do look good together, don't they? Looking out at the beautiful scenery, Capella sighs softly. That's true. Lost in her thoughts, Capella accidentally drips a giant blotch of black ink onto her clean paper. Ugh, I did it again, she groans as Ruri's sweat drops. Can't you focus on your work? Yuno asks gently. Then she looks at her with concern. Do you not like the idea of your father marrying? That's not the issue, Capella mutters, puffing her cheeks. She imagines her father and Maribel standing happily together. If he gets a wife that good, maybe he'll be softer toward me too. But deep down, the thought of someone replacing her mother still leaves a hollow, bittersweet feeling in her chest. Suddenly, Capella gasps as she spots something glittering under the couch. Miss Maribel forgot something. Is she still in the house? Capella asks. Yuno taps her chin, wondering maybe she's giving her report to Lord Axanon right now. If that's the case, Capella gasps, grabbing Yuno's hand, that means she's in Papa's workspace. Dragging Yuno along, Capella rushes down the hallway to find them. Reaching the large wooden doors of the Duke's study, Capella is about to call out Papa when Yuno suddenly grabs her arm. Wait a second. There's a strange sound coming from inside. Yuno whispers nervously as a mysterious swish echoes from behind the door. Slowly, they push the door open a crack, peeking into the dimly lit room as a pinkish-purple light spills out. Papa? Capella whispers, her wide red eyes scanning the room as Yuno peeks in just below her. Inside, Maribel leans close to the Duke on the sofa, her face inches from his as she whispers, "Don't be so tense." Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream echoes through the silent night. Ah! Back in her room, Capella thrashes around on her bed in pure embarrassment. Such a scene of intimacy, I can't bring myself to see it, she wails. If they really got married, she imagines with dread. Things could get even further. In her fantasy, her father gazes deeply into her tutor's eyes, whispering, Maria. Wah! She shrieks, frantically shaking her head to erase the mental image before collapsing into a sullen heap. Suddenly, a soft bird chirp cuts through her despair. Erp! I'm sorry. You woke up because I was loud, Capella says gently, cupping Lori in her hands. But Lori looks strangely sad. Lori, what's wrong? Did you have a nightmare? Gazing at her beloved bluebird, she sighs, if only you were human, it'd be better. Lori chirps in confusion. Look, we've been together ever since I was born, right? I don't think of you as a mere pet. If Lori were human, how would our relationship be? She imagines Lori as a beautiful blue-haired girl. Friends? A little sister? Or maybe an older sister? Even if you're my mother, I can accept it, Capella beams warmly. If that happens, we can talk about our problems together. I believe We can have a more enjoyable life. For now, shall we sleep together? Capella murmurs, laying her head down. I love you, Lori. That's why, please, please, always be by my side. In my previous life, Lori wasn't there. Even if the future can't be changed, just Lori alone brings ease to my heart. Because Lori is my precious Lori. Love you, she mumbles in her sleep. Hearing this, Lori lets out a quiet, affectionate chirp. The next day, Duke Axanon prepares to leave. Well then, I need to go to the castle. Mariabelle bows gracefully. Leave your daughter to me. Before leaving, the Duke places a hand on Capella's head. Capella? I hope you don't be a nuisance, the Duke says with a cold, serious face, but his inner voice is weeping dramatically. I will be apart from my dear Capella. I will miss her. Why can't my dear Capella just enter my pocket? If that were the case, then this, then that. The Duke's inner thoughts run wild, leaving Capella sweat-dropping in absolute disbelief. This man is totally out of his mind. During their lesson, Maribel reads aloud from a history book. After the previous emperor passed away 15 years ago, Capella completely zones out, resting her cheek on her hand. I don't understand how love between adults works. Even if he's in a relationship with the tutor, his heart won't change, right? Capella ponders before Maribel's voice snaps her back to reality. Lady Capella, are you listening? Never mind, Capella mutters blankly. Instantly, Yuno and Maribel cry out in shock. Of what? And Capella? Capella quickly covers her mouth. It slid out of my mouth. Closing her book, Maribel sighs. Good grief, you can't seem to focus at all. In that case, I have a favor for Lady Capella, Maribel says with a sweet smile, leaving Capella, Yuno, and Lori looking highly suspicious. They stand before the heavy doors of the Duke's forbidden room. Gulping nervously, Capella slowly reaches out and turns the handle. As the doors swing open, a brilliant star-shaped lamp illuminates a room packed with magical artifacts. Whoa, Capella gasps in awe, though Papa said not to enter this room. Magical swords, globes, and rare relics filled the shelves. Maribel throws her arms wide in excitement. What a magnificent sight! A calculating glint flashes in Maribel's eyes as she glances back at the two girls. Standing by the entrance, Yuno examines the doors. Yuno, is there something wrong with the door? Capella asks. Nothing, Yuno stammers, looking deeply unsettled. The door? You were able to open this, Capella? Capella, can you come here? Yuno requests. Okay, Capella replies, walking back over. Meanwhile, Maribel admires a shelf of golden glassware. Don't you think this tableware is lovely? Capella panics, shouting, it's better if you don't touch this tableware. Back then, I got scolded awfully because I was about to touch it, Capella warns, completely unaware of the wicked, greedy smirk spreading across Maribel's face. He was so scary back then that I can even cry just thinking about it, Capella continues. But behind her, Maribel ignores the warning entirely, her hand creeping toward a glowing pearl as Yuno's eyes widen in alarm. Sensing danger, Lori suddenly screeches, "Chirp," and swoops down with incredible speed. Lori swoops in and bites Maribel's hand, forcing her to release the glowing pearl. Lori, Capella gasps in shock. Absolute rage consumes Maribel's face as she trembles with anger. Out of nowhere, she seethes. What's wrong with this bird? Maribel shrieks, violently slapping Lori away. Lori crashes hard onto the floor. Lori! Capella screams in terror. Wait a minute, tutor, Capella yells, rushing to scoop up the injured bird. What did you do to Lori? But Maribel fires back. The one that did that to me was that bird, right? Pointing a trembling, scratched hand, Maribel demands, dispose of that barbaric bird right away. What? Capella gasps, her shock rapidly turning into pure rage. There's no way Lori would attack anyone blindly, Capella fiercely defends her pet. What the? I'm the one who's injured here, Maribel screeches back. As the argument escalates, Yuno quietly steps forward, spots the glowing pearl on the floor, and picks it up. Seeing this, Maribel snaps, Hey, Yuno! Yuno blinks in surprise. Maribel demands aggressively, Did you see anything? Was she about to steal something or anything? Keeping a perfectly blank, innocent expression, Yuno calmly lies, I didn't see what Maribel was about to do. We have a witness here, Maribel smirks triumphantly, flipping her hair. Meanwhile, Capella's expression darkens in complete despair. This treatment? I will have to report this immediately to Lord Corvus. Look forward to Lord Corvus's sincerity, Maribel laughs wickedly, entirely dropping her sweet persona. Capella glares at her with cold, unyielding anger, her fists clenching tight. A few days later, a tense meeting is held. Duke Axanon stands before them, bowing his head slightly as he murmurs, "I'm sorry about that." "So, consider this my compensation," Duke Axanon says coldly, sliding a document across the table. "From now on, the Axanon family will have no further ties with you. I'll put it in an agreement letter." Maribel gasps in disbelief, "Eh?" While Yuno quickly interjects, "Please wait a moment. I just wanted to—" Maribel stammers desperately, her eyes wide with panic. "If that bird that caused the injury is removed—" Below, Lori lets out a worried, sad chirp. "P." Lori is like a mother figure to Capella, the Duke explains calmly, gesturing with his hand. "She always watches over Capella, helps her at times, and it is truly precious. The same goes for me. In other words, she's like my wife," the Duke states with a proud smile, as Capella and Lori sparkle beside him. "How could I even think of comparing my family to a private tutor? There's no need for comparison, right?" "This is too absurd," Maribel screeches, trembling with indignation, calling a bird a mother. But Capella smiles with a dark, terrifying aura. "If you think it's strange, that's up to you." Pointing a firm finger at the disgraced tutor, the Duke declares coldly, "Now you're fired. Get out of here." As the tutor stands frozen in shock, the Duke's dark presence looms behind her. Or do you want to be hated even more by the daughter of the Reaper? Terrified, Maribel flees, slamming the double doors shut behind her. A heavy silence falls over the drawing room as Capella lets out a long, exhausted sigh. Looking down at his daughter, the Duke asks gently, "Capella, are you really okay with this decision? You just lost the chance to have a new mother." But Capella smiles. "Grandma once told me that I already have Lori." "I also have Yuno and Grace," Capella counts cheerfully, imagining her supportive friends. "And besides, there's Prince Oberon, not to mention, Papa is the Duke of Death." Her father stands tall, surrounded by a dark, intimidating aura. "The people around me are already dangerous enough," Capella thinks. Holding Lori close, she giggles to herself. "I can't handle any more." Suddenly, Capella panics as she notices Yuno's reaction. "I didn't mean to call Yuno dangerous," she mentally screams in embarrassment. "Well, anyway," the Duke sighs, crossing his arms, "please inform Lord Ophelia that I reject all future marriage proposals." Yuno bows her head respectfully. "Understood." "Yuno, did you already know about this engagement?" Capella wonders. Yuno recalls her hidden instructions. "Well, your dear father-in-law personally asked me to mediate," she remembers with a polite smile. Placing a hand on her chest, Yuno politely bows. "In that case, I'll take my leave too." The heavy wooden doors close softly, leaving Capella and her father sitting in quiet comfort on the sofa. As a calm breeze rustles the curtains, the Duke leans back comfortably. Has this father-child feud finally ended? But deep down, the Duke is bursting with overwhelming affection. But still, when I realized how much Capella loves her father, it was just too adorable, he screams internally, sending a wave of pink hearts crashing down on a completely overwhelmed Capella. "Who was fighting? That never happened," Capella huffs, turning away with puffed cheeks as the Duke blinks in confusion. "Really? Maybe it would be better if Papa had a wife," she ponders. "But what if their married life is so sweet that his inner thoughts just slip out?" Hiding behind the table with Lori, Capella shivers in sheer horror. "No, I can't even imagine it." Clinging to her ears, she begs to the heavens, "Please just keep all of that inside your heart forever." Meanwhile, in a dimly lit fireplace, Maribel's portraits and documents are set ablaze, quickly turning to ashes. Watching the flames devour the evidence, Yuno mutters coldly under her breath. Seriously, completely useless. "So, you're here?" A deep, imposing voice echoes from the doorway. Yuno freezes, looking up as her face pales in fear. "Father-in-law," she whispers, swallowing hard. The ruthless nobleman looms over her, his foot resting heavily on her back as she lies on the floor. "Lately, have you been visiting the Axanon family often? At the very least, bring me one useful piece of information." Pins and needles pierce Yuno's throat as she struggles to speak. Capella seems intent on enrolling at Hercules Academy. "I see. So she's taking the same path as Sierra," her father-in-law murmurs, digging his heel deeper into her back. "You have to stop her. If she gets a higher education too, then Sierra won't stand a chance anymore." "No matter what, Sierra must become Prince Oberon's wife," he demands. Peeking through the crack of the curtain, his daughter Sierra gasps in horror before running away. Sprinting through the grand, red-carpeted hallways, Sierra bursts into tears of frustration. "No, no, no! I want to marry Lord Raquel!" Slamming her bedroom door shut, Sierra leans against it, trembling with rage. "But She looks into the vanity mirror, her reflection cracking as she envisions Capella's face beside Raquel's. She's also close to Lord Raquel, she growls. Staring out the window into the dark night, Sierra clenches her fists in pure, unadulterated jealousy. I will never forgive her. She always takes everything I want. Her eyes burning with a dark, vengeful fire, she vows, I will definitely destroy her. Capella Axanon. Flashback to a grand banquet hall. Ciara's father introducing them, saying, "This is your first time meeting Ciara, isn't it? Go ahead, greet her." A young, handsome boy with soft pink hair steps forward, bowing elegantly. "My name is Raquel Goldoski. I look forward to a long and lasting relationship with you." Surrounded by beautiful golden roses, young Ciara watches him with wide, sparkling eyes, completely captivated. "Thank you for your patronage," Raquel says politely. As Raquel leaves with his family, he glances back one last time before the heavy double doors close behind them. Desperate to stay by his side, Sierra runs up to her father, pleading, "Father, I want to marry Raquel," she begs. But her father's cold voice instantly cuts her off. Sierra, placing a heavy hand on her head, her father smiles with a chilling, fake warmth. "You will be married to Prince Oberon, won't you?" Sierra freezes in sheer shock, her voice barely a whisper. Eh? A thorn-covered path appears in her mind, and marriage is a means to protect the family estate. I know it's merely for the purpose of politics. However, the same goes for you, right? Capella Axino? You are the official fiancé of Prince Oberon. It's not like I want to take Prince Oberon for myself. Despite that, are you planning to have Raquel all to yourself? Sierra thinks, recalling the sight of Capella talking to Raquel at the banquet. A beautifully decorated cake is violently smashed onto a plate, red jam splattering like fresh blood. It's not fair. Dresses, jewels? My father gave me all of those items. Reaching her hand out toward the happy pair in the distance, Ciara's heart burns with deep resentment. He only thinks of me as a tool called a daughter. If you weren't here in the first place, could I have gotten everything into my hands? With you gone, I could marry Prince Oberon and make Raquel my lover. Having a stepbrother isn't bad either. That way both my father and I would be perfectly satisfied. Everyone would be happy, right? Back then, I gave up the younger sister of the guard that Raquel had bought. As payment for that, I received a beautiful necklace from Raquel. Rather than calling it a cheap deal, Raquel probably just wanted to give me a gift, so he framed it as a business transaction. Can you help me put this on? Absolutely. Can you turn around for me? Normally, the social gap between the Duke's family and a Baron's family would prevent us from even speaking. But there is hope. No, from now on. As Sierra runs away with a gleeful skip, Raquel turns back to watch her with a quiet, curious gaze. Nearby, the giant guard warmly embraces his rescued sister, tears of relief in his eyes. Raquel smiles gently as he fastens the ruby necklace around young Capella's neck, the guard and his sister rejoicing in the background. With a magical, sparkling glow, the sweet moment leaves a lasting warmth in her heart. Well then, I shall excuse myself, Raquel bows politely. Capella waves, smiling. Please pay us another visit. Capella watches from the courtyard as Raquel's carriage slowly drives away into the bright morning. Well, Capella mutters, turning her head as she notices Yuno waiting by the grand entrance. Have you finished preparing the letters? Capella asks with a confident, proud smirk. Suddenly, a heavy stack of textbooks crashes onto the desk with a deafening thud. Eek! Capella squeaks in terror. What was that sound? That was quite unladylike of you, the Duke sighs, as his inner thoughts coddle her. Should we just rest today if it's too tough? Or should we just live a lovey-dovey, leisurely life together? Shaking her head rapidly, Capella stammers, No, it was nothing. In the end, Papa ended up becoming my homeroom tutor. Despite his Spartan education style, I can't really complain since all the learning materials are completely handmade. Since he went this far, I have no choice but to work hard. Then what should we begin with? Capella starts, but is interrupted by a knock at the door. Grace steps inside, holding an envelope. I'm sorry for interrupting your study, but there's an important letter. That's fine. You may enter, the Duke replies smoothly. Grace bows. Excuse me. Here it is, Grace says, handing over the letter. Capella takes it, muttering, but as she reads it, she gasps. Ah! Her hands tremble as she stares at the paper. It's about Sierra's birthday party. Looking up with teary, pleading eyes, Capella whines, Could I just not go? Speaking of which, the Duke mentions calmly, you also received a message from Prince Oberon a few days ago. He said, I look forward to meeting you at Ciara's birthday party. Hearing this, Capella screams internally, another deja vu moment, as memories of her chaotic past life flash before her. This invitation? I never received one in my previous life. Deep in a dark, cold dungeon, Sierra laughs hysterically, hee hee hee, ha ha ha, as she violently cracks a whip. Huh, finally. Sierra cedes, her eyes glowing with manic delight. My excitement is piling up.
Thank you for always playing with me, Yuno, Sierra says sweetly, looking down at Yuno, who lies battered and bound on the stone floor.
A butler opens the heavy door. Miss, it is time. Sierra turns back with a sing-song voice. Okay, just stay there for today and sing happy birthday to me, all right? With a heavy metallic clang, the iron bars slide shut, locking Yuno away in the cold darkness. My adorable little sister. Bye-bye, Sierra sneers, waving as she departs. The day of Sierra's birthday has finally arrived. At last, this day has finally come, Capella thinks, walking through the rose garden. Dressed in matching elegant purple attire, Capella and her imposing father stand tall, drawing everyone's attention. A butler bows politely. Then, milady, please proceed toward the garden, while the Duke heads to the designated room. Looking at each other, the Duke thinks, maybe I should just run away. And Capella internally sighs, for once, we actually agree. Realizing she has an opportunity, Capella decides, time to take advantage of Papa, and turns to him with puppy dog eyes. Papa, I'll miss you, she whispers sweetly, surrounded by a shower of pink roses. The Duke clutches his chest in sheer, overwhelming agony from her adorable attack. Before he can recover, a cheerful voice calls out, Capella!
It's been a while, Oberon beams, waving enthusiastically. Capella blinks. Prince Oberon. Staring at him, she can't help but notice, you've grown even more handsome in such a short amount of time, while her father glares jealously from behind. The adults go that way, and we go this way. Oberon cheers, taking her hand. Capella protests, Prince Oberon. The prince turns back, while the Duke clears his throat with a sharp protective, Defeated, the Duke reluctantly sighs. Then I will leave Capella in your care, Your Highness. As her father walks away with tears pricking his eyes, Capella sweat drops. Mission failed, she sighs. Sensing her hesitation, Prince Oberon looks at her gently and says, Don't worry. I will protect you well, he promises with a bright, charming smile. Blushing slightly, Capella replies, All right. Looking at his perfect face, Capella pouts internally. Damn, his face is way too handsome. Seriously, he's too cunning. This is completely unfair. With their hands tightly clasped, the two step forward into the lively party, ready to face whatever Sierra has planned. Walking through the garden arch, Capella thinks to herself, he's being so kind now, but one day he'll leave me. Prince Oberon breaks her train of thought, asking, By the way, I heard you've been studying diligently too? We can study together at the palace, Prince Oberon offers warmly, but Capella immediately turns away with a pout. Sorry, but Papa is now my tutor. Suddenly, a firm footstep sounds nearby as a voice calls out, Lady Capella. Capella winces, thinking to herself, people I know show up one by one. Standing elegantly amidst a field of purple lilacs, a handsome boy smiles warmly. It's been about 3 months since we last met, huh? Capella blinks in surprise. Oh, Raquel. It's been a while, Capella greets him. Raquel smiles playfully, noting, You called my name directly? Flustered, Capella stammers, Is that a problem? Raquel chuckles softly, On the contrary, I'd be honored if you did. Watching them from behind, Prince Oberon looks incredibly tense. Capella starts to ask, By the way, after that, how are your followers? But Raquel points toward a group in the distance. They're waiting for me over there. A wave of intense, burning glares from Raquel's passionate fangirls washes over them. Capella breaks into a cold sweat, screaming internally, Huh? Standing right in the middle of the crowd is the giant guard wearing his metallic visor, accompanied by a delicate blonde girl in a lovely white dress. Capella looks at the girl in complete awe, wondering, who's that beautiful girl? Raquel turns back to the girl with a gentle smile and beckons her over, saying, Come here. The girl approaches as the giant guard bows respectfully behind her. Lady Capella, the girl says softly, back then my brother was truly indebted to you. Capella tilts her head in confusion. Brother? Her brain completely short-circuits as she tries to connect the massive guard to the tiny, delicate girl. What? She gasps in disbelief. You two are siblings? Capella screams in shock. The girl giggles softly at her reaction. In that case, the giant guard reaches up and slides off his dark visor, revealing a pair of stunning, sparkly purple eyes that perfectly match his sister's. What do you think? The girl asks with a sweet smile. Stunned by the unexpected handsome revelation, Capella loses her balance and trips backward. Oh, she gasps as Raquel swiftly catches her, a dramatic shower of purple flowers framing them.
Forgive me, she stammers. Raquel smiles charmingly. No problem. This is a fortune for me. Watching the romantic display from a few steps away, Prince Oberon's hand clenches into a tight, trembling fist. Capella is my fiancé. Oberon seethes inwardly, his blue eyes burning with intense possessiveness. Forcing a bright but incredibly strained smile, Prince Oberon steps forward to break them apart. Capella, he calls out, introduce me to him too. Ah, this is Raquel Goldowski, Capella introduces him. Raquel offers a smooth bow. I'm the man who will be Capella's brother, Your Highness. Oberon's smile twitches. I heard your business adoption isn't settled yet? Raquel grins. But I really want to be her brother. Raquel casually drapes his hand over Capella's shoulder, leaning in with a teasing smirk. In that case, Your Highness will be my brother-in-law? Huh? Oberon's fake smile completely cracks, his veins popping in sheer irritation. Is that the face you make at your future brother-in-law? Raquel thinks, thoroughly enjoying his reaction. Suddenly, a loud, high-pitched voice echoes through the garden. Raquel! It's Sierra, running toward them in a bright pink gown. Capella winces in dread, groaning, ugh! Your beloved Sierra has arrived, she sings out happily, launching herself forward and tightly hugging Raquel's arm. Capella takes a step back, her face pale with horror. She's the last person I wanted to see today, she panics. Meanwhile, Sierra sneers with a dark, satisfied expression. Sensing the suffocating presence of the villainess, Capella desperately wishes she could run away. She's the last person I wanted to see today, she groans internally, while Sierra gloats in her triumph. Meanwhile, inside the grand, brightly lit banquet hall, the weather is so nice today, the guests chat warmly. Nearby, an elegant blonde woman approaches Capella's father. Corvus, she calls out. You look so exhausted, she notes, raising an eyebrow. The Duke sighs, holding his wine glass. Empress Iris. It's because I've been helping my son study, the Duke explains with a weary sigh. Empress Iris giggles behind her hand. You're as overprotective as ever. Lately, there's been an interesting rumor going around the palace, she whispers conspiratorially. What if Sierra replaces Oberon's fiancé? That's the latest gossip, Iris shares. The Duke's eyes narrow sharply as his aura turns icy. It's nothing serious, he mutters. Iris' sweat drops. Why do you look so amused? That's why, let your daughter appear in public more often, Iris advises. Because you keep hiding her away, people start saying things like that. The Duke swirls his wine glass. In that case, tell Prince Oberon. If he doesn't take the initiative soon, he might be the one getting rejected instead, don't you think? The Duke warns with a devastatingly cold smirk. Iris gasps softly. Oh my! But, Iris murmurs, looking down at her glass, I still prefer Capella. The Duke looks at her with genuine interest. And why is that? Iris gazes out thoughtfully, her blue eyes reflecting the bright morning light. Up on the grand staircase, the host raises his glass to the crowd, announcing, while the children are having fun, the guests are welcome to chat here. Iris turns back to the Duke with a mischievous, playful smile. I like beautiful people. The Duke can only stare back at her in silent amusement. Back in the garden, Sierra clings tightly to Raquel's arm, her eyes shining with pure obsession. I've been wanting to see you for so long, she squeals. Raquel hums coldly, effortlessly pulling his arm away from her. Long time no see, Lady Sierra. Sierra freezes in shock, her face twisting into a furious, hissing pout. Huh? Turning around, Sierra's eyes land on the delicate blonde girl. Oh my, she gasps, her voice dripping with pure venom. Why is a discarded servant in a place like this? Sierra stomps over and aggressively grabs a handful of the girl's white lace dress. And even wearing a dress like this, how pitiful. It looks like the dress itself is suffering. If you take it off right here and bow before me, I might consider buying you back, Sierra sneers maliciously. But before the guard can step in, a cold voice cuts through the air. About that? Raquel steps forward, shielding the trembling girl with a sharp, chilling smile. Thank you for such a fine item. I paid for it with my own personal funds, you know. Sierra gasps in horror. Lord Raquel? As you can see, she looks perfect in that dress. She's diligent, and she even serves tea wonderfully, Raquel notes smoothly. Then he leans down close to Sierra's face, his eyes cold and menacing. Compared to a stone that merely sparkles, she's far more valuable. Turning on his heel, Raquel prepares to leave with a dismissive wave. So I'd greatly appreciate your continued support in the future. As a merchant, a customer as beautiful as her is a treasure. Sierra stands completely frozen, trembling in sheer humiliation. What? Capella leans in to inspect the beautiful lace of the girl's dress. Could this lace be made by Raquel? She gasps. Raquel smiles in admiration. Capella, you really know your stuff.
Capella beams, I've studied it. I heard just one of these dresses could buy an entire castle, Capella adds cheerfully. Hearing this, the blonde girl bursts into tears of panic. Huh? She squeaks, clutching her face in terror. That dress is the latest design from my personal designer, Raquel explains with a reassuring chuckle. Raquel winks at the panicking girl. So your job today is to be its exclusive model. Use your beauty to attract more customers. Capella giggles happily in the background as a thoroughly defeated Ciara stomps away in anger. Sierra glares back at her with a venomous hiss, looking completely unhinged. As Ciara stomps away, Capella quickly scans the crowded garden with a worried expression. But more importantly, she murmurs, Prince Oberon tilts his head, wondering what she's searching for. I want to see Yuno, Capella screams internally, her heart racing with anticipation. Walking down a dark stone staircase, Ciara's anger boils over as she clutches her pink dress. No, 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 she screams internally. I should be the center of attention, not anyone else. With a violent clang, a heavy metal door swings open inside a damp, dark dungeon where Yuno sits bound with ropes as a voice cries out, Yuno! Standing over her with a menacing whip in hand, Ciara's golden eyes slit like a predator. Play with me, she commands coldly. She lashes the whip through the air in absolute fury. Am I an outcast? I am the main character for today. It's the birthday of Ciara Ophelia. Congratulate me, Ciara screams, lashing her whip around. Sing happy birthday for me. Scattered all across the cold, dirty stone floor are the mangled remains of dolls, their limbs and heads cruelly ripped apart. As the whip slashes across her back, Yuno barely manages to whisper through her tears, Happy birth. Ciara forcefully grabs Yuno's face, staring into her eyes with a mad grin. Today I look cute, don't I? She whispers. But why? Just why does Capella get all the things I desire? Ciara seethes as she pictures Capella surrounded by handsome and powerful men who adore her. Reaching her hand out menacingly toward Yuno, tears of pure jealousy stream down Ciara's face. All of it. I'm going to take everything away from her. Clenching the handle of her whip, she breaks into a twisted, ecstatic laugh. Just look forward to it. The state of your friend in tatters. As the heavy iron door slams shut and Ciara leaves, Yuno lies bruised on the floor, a dark, unsettling smile spreading across her face. Friend, is it? She whispers. Back in the sunny palace garden, Prince Oberon's voice cuts through the quiet. By the way, Raquel, why don't you go sell your dresses somewhere else? Oberon demands with a fake, sparkling smile. Raquel smiles back just as sweetly, retorting, Your Highness, shouldn't you be busy greeting the other guests? Go somewhere else. Caught between their intense rivalry, Capella stands completely frozen and dead inside. Well, I'll go somewhere else, Capella mutters, turning on her heel and leaving them to glare at each other under the bright blue sky. She weaves her way through the elegant party guests, searching every corner of the estate. Sure enough, Yuno is nowhere to be seen, Capella notes, her worry growing by the second. Ophelia, Capella ponders, holding her chin in deep thought. Although she's an adopted daughter, she's still a part of the family, right? It's strange that she isn't here at the party. Suddenly, as she rounds a large stone fountain, Capella accidentally collides with someone. I apologize, Capella begins, but the girl immediately turns away, coughing violently into her hands as she rushes off. Capella watches her leave, a bad feeling settling in her gut. Today, I'm thankful that everyone has gathered here for my sake, Ciara announces dramatically from a raised platform. Because of that, I've arranged a fun game for everyone. Capella sighs in deep annoyance. Ugh. The game is called Ciara's Most Wanted Treasure Hunt, Ciara cheers playfully. The item I'm looking for is hidden somewhere around the estate. The first person to find it can choose any item they want from my personal jewel box, she squeals. The crowd of young noble girls gasps in pure excitement, while Capella remains entirely unimpressed. Without delay, let's begin the game, Ciara shouts. As a wave of eager guests rushes past her, Capella groans. There is absolutely nothing more troublesome than this. But this actually might be the perfect excuse to search the estate for Yuno without drawing suspicion, she realizes, walking under the rose arches. Capella, Oberon calls out, running up to her with sparkling eyes. Did you hear that? A game! But honestly, if you want jewels, I can easily buy you a mountain of the finest gems myself. Me too, Raquel pipes up, stepping in with a charming smirk. I have plenty of my own funds saved up. If Capella wants anything at all, we would greatly appreciate your patronage to the Goldoski Company. Jewels, huh? Capella thinks bitterly, remembering her tragic past.
I used to love them so much, but when it came to clearing me of the false accusation of regicide, they were completely useless. As for me, I preferred trust over jewels, Capella says quietly. Please leave me alone for a while. With that, she walks away, leaving both boys staring after her in utter shock. Stepping into the quiet corridors of the mansion, Capella shakes off her heavy thoughts. Get a hold of yourself. First, let's find Yuno. Although I'm still in the same estate, there's a strange, unsettling atmosphere here, she notes as she walks deeper into the empty wings of the house. Chirp, her little bluebird calls out. Compared to the lively ballroom, this wing of the mansion seems completely dead, Capella thinks. Suddenly, she gasps as her eyes land on a door. Ah, I found it! Yuno's room. Well, that's surprisingly cute decor for her room. Her heart leaps with hope. She must be inside. Capella raps her knuckles against the wooden door. Yuno, it's me, Capella, she calls out softly. But only a heavy, chilling silence answers from the other side. Reaching for the handle, she's surprised to find no resistance. The door is unlocked. Slowly pushing it open, she peeks inside. Excuse me? Capella mutters, her breath hitching as her eyes widen in absolute horror. Inside the dimly lit room lies the blood-soaked body of the girl she bumped into earlier. In an instant, the gruesome sight triggers a traumatic flashback of her father lying dead in a pool of blood. This scene, she trembles. Suddenly, a piercing, blood-curdling scream echoes through the quiet hallways, making Prince Oberon and Raquel freeze in terror. Capella drops to her knees, her hands shaking violently as tears fill her eyes. No way! This has to be a lie. She panics, staring at the horror before her. Capella! Oberon yells, rushing into the room and immediately dropping to his knees to comfort her. Are you all right, Capella? Raquel steps in right behind him, gasping in disbelief. This is... Grabbing her sleeve in absolute terror, Capella stares in utter panic as her mind races back to her execution. It wasn't me, she screams internally. Am I being suspected again? Capella thinks in despair, her voice shaking as she clings to Oberon. Do you think I killed her? I swear I didn't do this. But before she can spiral further, Oberon firmly declares, I already know that. Without a moment's hesitation, the young prince pulls her into a tight, protective embrace. I will protect you, Oberon promises, holding her close as he asks, will you believe me? Capella can only gasp softly in his arms, her heart trembling at his words. I'll go bring an adult, Raquel says quietly, offering a reassuring smile. Don't worry, it's going to be okay. He turns to Oberon. Your Highness, about Capella. But Oberon cuts him off gently. You don't need to say it. I'll take care of her. Holding her securely in his arms, Oberon gently strokes her hair, creating a quiet sanctuary of warmth amidst the nightmare. As Raquel rushes off to get help, Capella rests her head against Oberon's chest, her heart beating rapidly. This really isn't the time to be thinking about stuff like this, she thinks to herself, but I can't help but feel so incredibly happy right now. It appears that her chronic illness caused her non-stop coughing, and eventually she began coughing up blood, the doctor explains grimly. But without the special medicine, there's nothing we can do. The girl's mother bursts into tears, sobbing, Why? My daughter always carried her medicine with her. Sir Ophelio narrows his eyes, murmuring, The first person who found her was... Sir Ophelio turns his sharp gaze to her. If I recall correctly, it was Lady Capella. What was the situation like? Capella flinches, her body trembling under the weight of his suspicion. Leaning down close to her, Sir Ophelio asks coldly, May I ask you to explain it? Do you recall anything about the medicine? Capella's voice hitches as she stammers. I... Speak clearly, Sir Ophelio demands, his gaze piercing. What should I do? Capella panics internally. I'm still so scared. Even their highnesses are still children too. Looking at Sir Ophelia's ominous, looming figure, a terrible realization sinks in. If the adults don't believe me, I'll be falsely accused again. Capella despairs as the terrifying image of the guillotine from her past execution flashes before her eyes. Suddenly, with a loud slam, the heavy wooden doors swing open. Capella! A powerful voice roars. Capella gasps in disbelief as she turns to look. Papa! Capella immediately runs to Duke Castor's side, tears streaming down her face. Papa, I didn't do anything. I don't know anything. I was just looking for Yuno. I went into her room, and when I saw her, she had already collapsed. That's all. Duke Castor listens quietly before gently cutting her off. That's enough. But Capella continues to plead desperately. Please believe me, Papa. That's all. That's really all that I saw, she cries. Duke Castor stares down at her with a stern expression, commanding, Don't say another word. Capella clutches her dress, her heart sinking in despair. I knew it, Papa. You don't believe me at all. But to her shock, Duke Castor gently rests his hand on her head, looking down at her with a soft, protective gaze. What kind of parent wouldn't believe their own daughter? Don't make a fuss over something so obvious. Capella's eyes widen, filled with sudden warmth and relief. Duke Castor turns to Sir Ophelia with a dark, menacing glare. Sir Ophelia, could you please explain? Why is my dear Capella crying? An intense aura of pure fury surrounds the Duke as he seethes. I will never forgive you. Sir Ophelia sweats nervously under his gaze. That is... Looking at her father's protective stance, Capella remembers her past life of shackles and despair. The words I wanted to hear more than anything back then, Papa believed in me as if it were the most normal thing in the world. But this time, it's different. Not like back then. Even Prince Oberon, Raquel, and Papa too. Everyone believes in me like it's the most normal thing in the world. Capella cradles her little blue bird close to her cheek, tears of joy welling up in her eyes. Right now, I feel like I could die happy. That normal feeling is so wonderful. That's why. Wiping away her tears, Capella points back toward the room with newfound courage. That young lady? She had been coughing even before the game started. I didn't see her at all after the game started, until she came into this room. When she showed up, she was already covered in blood and unconscious. That's all I know, Capella concludes firmly, her eyes sharp and determined. Sir Ophelia smiles smoothly, trying to diffuse the tension. Then maybe she must have dropped the medicine somewhere. I'll have the whole mansion searched right away. But a mockingly sweet voice cuts in. But a golden-haired girl with a wicked grin steps forward. I did witness it myself, you know? Sierra? Sir Ophelia gasps. Sierra struts into the room with a confident, devious smirk. Lady Capella. Sierra leans in close to Capella, her golden eyes gleaming with malice as she prepares to whisper a poison-laced accusation. Weren't you having a fight with her? Sierra whispers venomously. Could it be that you were the one who actually stole it, Lady Capella? Capella glares back at her with fierce, unyielding anger. As the sick girl lies coughing in the background, Sierra's twisted accusation rings loud and clear. Her medicine? Could it be that you were the one who actually stole it, Lady Capella? Is it because she got your dress dirty, so you did something like that? Sierra sneers, grabbing a fistful of Capella's blue dress. Capella seethes in silent rage, gritting her teeth. She hasn't learned from her mistakes, Capella realizes. Suddenly, a voice cuts through her thoughts. Then shall we hear it from the person directly? Capella slaps Sierra's hand away and counters confidently, even without medicine, you know can heal her. Sierra's eyes widen in shock. Capella grabs Sierra's arm, asserting, then to find out who's actually wrong, we should ask her directly. Where is Yuno? Capella demands. Sierra only giggles, pulling her arm back with a smug, knowing smirk. Capella's jaw tightens as she glares at the manipulative girl, who finally giggles, fine. I'll bring her back, Capella declares, her gaze burning with determination as she prepares to search for her friend. As Capella storms away, Sierra looks back at her father. Order everyone to search for the medicine? Sir Ophelia mutters darkly, you know very well that I won't let Albitran's history repeat itself. Sierra turns away with a sinister smirk. There's no way she could find Yuno. Capella sprints through the mansion's lavish hallways, throwing doors open left and right as she desperately calls out, Yuno, 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 where are you? Her frantic search leaves the kitchen staff and servants in complete shock. Sir Ophelia catches up to her, placing a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to push yourself too hard. Let the adults handle this. But Capella aggressively slaps his hand away, her eyes flashing with defiance. Don't take me lightly. I am the type to accept challenges like this. Sir Ophelia stands frozen in the hallway, clicking his tongue in deep annoyance. Ch. Walking down the corridor, Capella's brow furrows in deep thought. I'm pretty sure I've checked the entire residence. I wonder if there are any shady places left. Suddenly, she stops and looks down at the dark stone steps leading to the basement, guarded by two stern-looking royal soldiers. Hey, that way Capella begins to think, but before she can take a step, a pair of gloved hands suddenly covers her eyes from behind. Capella, a playful voice sings, causing her to gasp in surprise. The hands gently pull away to reveal Raquel standing behind her with a charming, winking smile. Raquel? Capella gasps in shock. Raquel smirks playfully, asking, would you like to have some tea with me? Seated in a beautiful sunlit gazebo surrounded by yellow roses, Capella sighs heavily, completely exasperated. It's not the time for me to relax and drink some tea. Raquel merely smiles, patting her hand gently. There. Suddenly, a polite voice interrupts their conversation. Excuse me? Capella blinks, turning her head. A stunning blonde maid with an angelic smile pours hot tea into a delicate porcelain cup with perfect grace. Behind the sweet maid looms a massive, muscular man wearing sunglasses, radiating an incredibly intense and intimidating pressure. Please enjoy it while it's warm, the maid smiles brightly. Raquel sweats profusely, stammering, thank you. Capella sips her tea, completely frozen. Her brother's presence is overwhelming.
Taking a sip, Capella's face lights up with absolute delight. Oh my, it's delicious, she cheers. The sweet maid clenches her hands in pure happiness while her giant brother flexes his massive arms in silent celebration in the background. She said working at the royal palace was her dream, Raquel explains smoothly as Capella sips her tea. For now, she's a mere commoner, but if the future queen could speak up about this, something would definitely change, right? Therefore, you should build your own connections too, Raquel encourages with a bright, charming smile. The young maid blushes deeply, mumbling, Looking around to ensure no one is listening, the maid leans close and whispers, Lady Yuno is probably being confined in the basement. Hearing this, Capella drops her teacup in utter shock. Huh? Yuno? The teacup shatters on the stone floor, tea splashing everywhere as the maid's words echo in Capella's mind. Lady Yuno was being confined in the basement? Lady Yuno was abused on a daily basis. Her room is more like a basement storage space, the maid explains with a sorrowful expression. Capella's face goes completely pale. Then that room was an image of Sierra painting a wooden sign that says Yuno's room and hanging it on a fake door in the upper mansion flashes in Capella's mind. That girl faked it all, she realizes, her anger boiling over. Yuno, Capella gasps, standing up immediately. Raquel extends his hand toward the young maid. So, I wonder if she'll be remembered. The future queen, huh? Capella stares at them, processing the sudden reveal. Turning around, Capella gives a warm, grateful smile. A beauty like this, even if you tried, you couldn't forget her. She waves as she starts to walk away. I'll thank you properly later. Raquel quickly grabs her arm to stop her. Wait, weren't there soldiers guarding the basement stairs? Isn't this exactly the time when you should put a man to use? He asks with a confident, devious wink. At the top of the basement stairs, Prince Oberon makes a grand entrance, standing proudly in front of the guards with his arms crossed. Allow me to inspect what lies beyond this point, he commands. Raquel and Capella watch from behind, Capella looking entirely dumbfounded by the display. Oberon proudly holds up his shimmering royal crest. Don't you see it? You'd better think hard about what it means to defy the royal family before you answer, he shouts at the nervous guards. Capella sweat drops behind him, whispering to Raquel, Are we really okay with doing this? If we get caught, Her Majesty will be furious. Raquel whispers back with a smirk, But that's His Highness's problem, right? Raquel watches them with a warm smile. Lady Capella sure is loved. His Highness didn't even hesitate when Lady Capella asked. The basement, Capella points, rushing down the dark stairs. Leave it to me, Oberon cheers, following right behind her. Capella gazes down into the dark abyss of the staircase. Loved, huh? If I didn't know the future, maybe I'd be happy about that. An image of Oberon lying dead in her arms from her past life briefly haunts her. But before she can spiral, Oberon's cheerful voice cuts through the darkness. Capella, we've got permission to enter, he beams brightly, waving her down. Well then, Capella says softly, stepping forward with determination. Let's go. Prince Oberon and Raquel follow closely behind her as they prepare to head downstairs. Their footsteps echo sharply in the dim, damp stone stairwell as they make their descent into the depths of the basement. Ugh, this place reeks, Prince Oberon mutters, covering his nose. Capella clutches her handkerchief, her heart sinking. Yuno was really kept somewhere like this? Suddenly, her little bluebird chirps weakly, Happy birthday, before crying out, Pie, and flying ahead into the dark. Ruri, Capella gasps, chasing after her tiny friend. Eek, Capella gasps as she turns the corner, spotting a dark, heavily barred cell at the end of the corridor where Ruri has flown. Capella's eyes widen in sheer horror. You? No? Lying bound and helpless on the cold floor is Yuno, who weakly opens her eyes. That voice? Capella? Rushing into the cell, Capella hugs her tightly, tears welling in her eyes. Why? Why are you? Who would do something like this? Played a little too hard with my dear sister-in-law. A mocking voice sneers from the darkness, followed by the slow, sarcastic sound of clapping. Haha, some best friend you are, Sir Ophelia chuckles deviously, stepping into the dim light. Your compassion is truly admirable, but to come all the way down here, it seems even Lady Capella has gone a bit too far in her little games, Sir Ophelia concludes, looking down at Capella with a chilling, cold glare. He clasps his hands together, asserting smoothly, wandering through someone else's home without permission is not something to be praised. Clinging tightly to her friend, Capella fires back. What about you? What are you thinking? You abused Yuno, a saint. Sir Ophelia merely laughs. Haha, this is part of her discipline, you know. Our family has been entrusted with the education of saints for generations. Even if she's a saint, at her core, she'll always be an orphan, a rat. Sir Ophelia continues with a twisted, elitist expression.
To become a saint revered by the commoners, it's not something that can be achieved overnight. If she receives the same education as we do, she wouldn't even become human, because filthy blood runs through her veins. Capella's blood runs cold at his cruel words. Now then, Lady Capella, Sir Ophelia says, suddenly grabbing Capella's arm to drag her away. Kya! Capella cries out in surprise. Leave the education of the saint to the professionals, he commands. Let us return upstairs and continue our lovely party. Ouch, Capella winces. Suddenly, a cold voice rings out. Lord Ophelia. That's far enough, Prince Oberon commands sharply, stepping in and pointing his dagger directly at Sir Ophelia's throat. Capella is in pain. Capella looks up, her eyes wide with shock. Sir Ophelia raises his hands in mock surrender, a cold sweat breaking on his brow. No need for such violence, Your Highness. But Oberon cuts him off fiercely. It seems you've forgotten something. It seems you've forgotten something. Holding his blade high, Prince Oberon declares proudly, Lady Yuno is the friend of my fiancée, Capella. In other words, she is my friend too. Calling this discipline while hurting my friend? How noble of you. Oberon sheathes his dagger as Sir Ophelia grits his teeth in silent humiliation. Capella covers her mouth, deeply moved. Your Highness, thank you very much. Oberon turns to her, blushing slightly as he smiles. It's nothing. I just did what anyone would do. Raising his dagger once more, Oberon slices through the thick ropes binding Yuno's wrists. I have a request. There's something I'd like to ask the Queen, together with Yuno. Oberon drops to one knee, looking up at them with absolute resolve. Of course, I'll ask on her behalf as well. This is for my beloved Yuno, too. Capella gently supports Yuno, asking softly, Yuno, I know it hurts, but can you walk a little? No, your beautiful clothes will get dirty, Yuno protests weakly. But Capella hugs her tightly, shouting, Nothing's more important than you, Yuno. Capella supports her friend as they slowly walk towards the staircase. Yuno blushes, whispering, Huh? In response to Capella's passionate defense, while Capella simply smiles, reassuring her, It's nothing. Oberon glances back at Sir Ophelia, commanding, Will you come with us as well? Sir Ophelia bows smoothly, masking his rage. Of course, Your Highness. Standing near the cell, Raquel watches them walk away, a thoughtful look in his eyes. Still, Raquel places a gloved hand on his chin, a playful, slightly mischievous smile spreading across his face. Hearing dearest from a 10-year-old's mouth? Did I maybe teach her something she shouldn't know? Back in the grand bedchamber upstairs, the young sick girl lies coughing violently. Is there really no other way? The doctor asks in despair. Sir Ophelia sighs. I've arranged to have medicine brought in, but the earliest it can arrive is tomorrow morning. Suddenly, the doors fly open with a loud click. Pardon me. Everyone in the room gasps and turns around in absolute shock as a familiar voice echoes through the doorway. That voice. Capella strides into the room, supporting a weak but determined Yuno. Your Majesty, she calls out, I have something to discuss. Yuno stares at the coughing girl in bed, her eyes widening. Standing tall, Duke Castor commands with absolute authority. Regarding her treatment, I'll take over. Capella looks down at her friend in concern. Yuno, right now, you. But Yuno looks back with quiet resolve. I'm a saint, Capella. No matter what I face, even if I had to relive my life over and over again, Yuno thinks, her gaze burning with divine determination, I have no intention of giving up this duty to anyone else. I exist to bring about miracles, so it's all right now. Yuno resolves, a radiant green light beginning to gather around her. Placing her hand gently on the sick girl's forehead, Yuno whispers with a sweet, angelic smile, With this, you can rest easy. A blinding, brilliant flash of green light explodes throughout the room, showering everyone in glowing magical butterflies. The girl's coughing ceases instantly, her expression softening into a peaceful sleep. Sir Ophelia and Prince Oberon stare in absolute awe. Or so I thought. But suddenly, Yuno's strength fades and she begins to collapse. Yuno, Capella cries out, catching her friend. Before you're the saint, you're my friend, Yuno. Capella looks down at Yuno cradled in her arms. She mutters, hearing her soft, peaceful breathing. Is she just asleep? Doing something unnecessary again, Duke Castor sighs, crossing his arms sternly. But behind his cold exterior, his inner thoughts are in an absolute panic. Oh, my sweet little Capella, are you hurt? You're all beat up. I knew I shouldn't have brought you to a place like this. Capella and Ruri sweat drop at his dramatic inner aura. Capella looks up at her father, smiling warmly. Father, what's wrong? Holding Yuno close, Capella beams brightly. I'm okay, you know. Duke Castor clutches his head, his heart melting in pure joy. Capella is trying to put my mind at ease. Capella happily explains, Prince Oberon protected me. Duke Castor's expression instantly sours. Raquel gave me some good advice too, Capella adds. In a split second, a terrifying, murderous aura of pure darkness erupts from the Duke. The world should just burn. Why? Capella panics while the Queen claps her hands to diffuse the tension. Okay, family bonding time ends here. Miss Ophelia, let Miss Yuno rest, the Queen commands smoothly. Sir Ophelia bows deeply. Thank you for your concern for my daughter. That precious daughter of yours seems quite a mess. He smiles mockingly. Her mischief really causes trouble. Then I shall personally carry her. Before Sir Ophelia can even touch Yuno, Capella blocks his path, shouting defiantly, Your Majesty the Queen, I have something to discuss with you. Yuno is regularly subjected to this kind of abuse, Capella declares boldly. Sir Ophelia breaks into a nervous sweat, stammering, Miss Capella, what are you? But Capella commands, We must urgently reconsider the duties of the two dukes. This kind of education is wrong. The Queen ponders, resting her chin on her hand. So you want House Axanon to take full charge of the saint's education? Capella's inner voice groans. Ugh, that sounds like a pain. Or rather, more like impossible. The Queen's expression turns grave. I'm my family's only daughter, and I might be executed, you know? I can't make this decision lightly. Capella tightly embraces her sleeping friend, her eyes filled with desperation. But if things stay like this, Yuno will... Capella, Duke Castor begins in a low voice, but the Queen raises a gentle hand to quiet him. She looks down at the young girl with a warm, soft smile. You called out what you think is wrong. Stroking Capella's head with motherly warmth, the Queen praises her. That kind of honest courage in a child is truly beautiful. Keep learning lots from now on, and if you come up with a good idea, tell me, okay? It's the royal family's duty to fix what's wrong, the Queen reassures her with a gentle, sparking smile. So let's start working on it together, little by little.
Now then, Miss Yuno should see a doctor, the Queen commands. The rest of you, you're dismissed for now. She then casts a terrifyingly sweet, dark smile toward her son. Oberon, once you return to the palace, you know what's coming, right? Oberon shakes violently, squeaking, Yes, ma'am? Are you seriously planning to let the real culprit walk free? A shrill voice demands. Hey! Everyone turns as Sierra storms back into the room, pointing aggressively. Sierra sneers maliciously, pointing a sharp, accusatory finger right at Capella. Capella Axanon, the one who stole the medicine. Capella only glares back, completely unmated by her lies. Then I suppose I'll have my say as well, Capella steps forward, pointing. Sierra scoffs. The desperate howl of a sore loser? But Capella only chuckles calmly. Haha, but no. With a chilling, confident smile, Capella asserts, I'll reveal exactly who is trying to frame me. That's right. Looking around at everyone in the room, Capella asks, to begin with, who was it that stole her medicine again? Was that really Yuno's room in the first place? That nameplate, I really don't think that's in line with Yuno's tastes. I have a friend, a maid who used to work here long ago, Capella explains. She turns to her side. Mind if I ask her about it, right, Raquel? Raquel places a hand on his chest, smiling warmly. Of course, if that's what my lovely Capella wants, I'll bring the maid we traded the necklace with. Hearing this, Ciara gasps in utter shock, while her father grits his teeth in frustration. Seraphia quickly steps between them, trying to laugh it off. Come on, you two, that's enough bickering. You've been through a lot and must be tired, right? Let's have some cake brought in. Make peace over that, okay? Suddenly, a bluebird flies rapidly through the air. Hey, what's with this bird? Sierra shrieks, waving her arms wildly. As she flails, a small glass vial slips from her dress and clatters onto the floor. Sierra pales in horror, stammering, That is... Duke Castor calmly bends down and picks up the vial. There's a small amount of powder inside, he notes grimly. Examining the container closely, he wonders, what kind of drug is this? Maybe we should ask that doctor from earlier, Capella suggests pointedly. Sierra hangs her head, trembling in absolute terror, before looking up with wide, frantic eyes as she realizes her defeat. With a violent slap, Sierra is sent sprawling across the floor. Capella gasps in shock, clutching her chest, while Duke Castor immediately steps in, placing a protective hand on his daughter's shoulder as she murmurs, Father. Father, Sierra whimpers from the floor, but Sir Ophelia grabs her by the head, slamming her face first into the cold ground. I deeply apologize for my daughter's disgraceful behavior, he roars, bowing in desperation. I sincerely beg for your forgiveness. I will send her to a convent at once and have her renounce our family name, Sir Ophelia declares ruthlessly. Sierra looks up, tears streaming down her bruised face. I was supposed to go to Hercules Academy, but her father cuts her off with a freezing glare. Don't disappoint me any further. I don't even want to think of you as my daughter anymore, Sir Ophelia spits out, turning his back on her as he leaves. Sierra remains kneeling on the floor, completely shattered and silent. Lord Raquel, Sierra cries out, desperately reaching her hand toward him. I've always loved you, Lord Raquel. Raquel smiles mockingly, resting his chin on his hand. How could I possibly love a woman who tried to set up my sister? His expression turns incredibly cold as he delivers the final blow. I hate women like you the most. No way! Why? Sierra thinks, her mind fracturing. She grabs Capella's dress tightly, screaming, why can't I have anything I want? You and I are supposed to be the same, aren't we? We're both the only daughters of Marquisate families, and yet, Sierra weeps, you're loved by your parents. You get to marry the one you love. You and I, what's so different between us? Kneeling before Capella, Sierra can only weep in bitter despair, completely defeated. Capella looks down at her with a blank, unmoved expression, saying simply, that's all. Sierra gapes in disbelief. That's just cruel. No, she mutters as a dark void of despair swallows her. Outside, the palace guards drag Sierra toward a waiting carriage. Let go of me, I am Sierra Ophelia, she screams, kicking and struggling to no avail. Father, mother, why is this happening? Sierra despairs. Watching the carriage depart from the high window, Capella thinks quietly. Sierra was cast aside by her father. Capella turns back from the window, asking softly, if I ever become a nuisance, will you throw me away too? Duke Castor blinks in absolute shock. Huh? Sierra's just like the old me, Capella reflects silently, remembering her past execution. I was just crying out, wanting someone to love me. That's all I ever did. What was different between her and me the day I was executed? If I hadn't restarted my life, she could have been happy, Capella thinks, a heavy guilt weighing on her chest. And me standing atop someone else's misfortune? Maybe one day I, too, will be betrayed by this father of mine, Capella worries. Seeing her somber face, Duke Castor breaks into a nervous sweat. Hey now, the queen interjects playfully, stepping forward. Don't bully your sweet papa like that. Capella is taken aback. Sweet? Beside her, Duke Castor coughs awkwardly, his cheeks flushing. The queen smiles gently, using her feather fan to hide her grin. I've never known a more doting parent than your father, so remember this. Underneath a dramatic, sparkling background of blue roses, Duke Castor looks at her with absolute sincerity. Your papa will always be on your side. Gently patting Capella's head, the queen sighs, honestly, I want to be a parent like that too, but because of my position, I may not always be able to side with you or Oberon. But, she points dramatically at Duke Castor, this fool here would throw away rank and duty. He will absolutely be on your side no matter what. That's the word of the most powerful woman in this country, the queen reassures her. You can trust in that, right? Hearing those words, a tear of pure relief wells up in Capella's eye. Capella remembers her past life, even back then during the last execution. She always looked like she was in so much pain. Tears spill over as Capella cries out, I'm sorry. She was always scolding me, so I thought she hated me. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. Sobbing softly, Capella whispers, all this time, I thought you were just... The queen and Duke Castor stare in shock, taken aback by the young girl's sudden emotional outburst. Ha! The queen gasps quietly. Ha? Oberon and the queen panic comically. Just then, the door creaks open. Excuse me, I knocked, but nobody answered. Yuno peeks her head into the room. Spotting her friend, Capella gasps in delight. Yuno! Duke Castor looks at her with concern. Are you already okay to be moving around? Yuno nods gently. Yes. Meanwhile, the blue bird happily perches on the Duke's shoulder, chirping softly. So you really were here, Capella says, running up to her. Yuno smiles warmly at her. It's okay, Capella. Thanks to you, I won't get any worse than before, Yuno whispers. Then her expression turns serious. I have to do well as the saint. Otherwise, our family's position will be at risk. The queen watches the two girls, commenting with a wry smile. This generation's saint is pretty calculating, huh? Duke Castor looks on at the girls, letting out a soft, amused chuckle. Outside, as the beautiful sunset colors the sky, the girls share a happy laugh. Up at the window, Raquel watches them as a carriage pulls up. Ah, our carriage got here first, he notes. Capella turns to Raquel, waving as she says, Don't worry, go on home ahead of us. Raquel blinks in surprise, then smiles softly. Before she can react, Raquel steps closer, leaning his face right next to hers in a sudden, intimate moment that leaves her completely startled. What? Capella stammers, her heart pounding furiously as pink roses bloom around them. What is this? Capella mutters, completely flustered. Raquel smiles tenderly. It might be inappropriate for me to say, but I was thinking, thanks to you, today was fun again. Suddenly, Raquel leans in and plants a soft kiss on her cheek. What?
Capella freezes in sheer shock, while Prince Oberon's jaw drops in the background, screaming in his head, "Wah!" Stepping back, Raquel waves cheerfully with a bright smile. "I'm a year older than you in the academy, but let's get along after your enrollment too, Capella." Capella stands frozen like a statue, clutching her kissed cheek. Ah! Behind her, Oberon is completely losing his mind, pointing and screaming, "What's your relationship with him anyway?" Meanwhile, Duke Castor stands in the background, a murderous dark aura radiating from him as he silently plots Raquel's demise. Still completely dazed, Capella can only murmur, "He might become my big brother someday?" Duke Castor lets out a cold smirk. Nothing has been decided yet, though. Behind him, a dark aura of pure rage radiates, whispering, "Pest, pest, pest, must exterminate pest." Prince Oberon is left completely baffled, sputtering in confusion. If you're siblings, then isn't kissing? But before he can even finish, the queen grabs him by the collar, dragging him away. Just when you finally started feeling love. Time to go home. The queen waves goodbye cheerfully. "See you again, Capella. You too, Corvus." Still completely dizzy, Oberon can only squeak out, "See ya." Waving back at them, Capella can't help but sweat drop. Were they always that noisy before? She mutters, "That was quite a lively goodbye." A gentle voice calls out, "Yuno." Turning around, she sees Yuno approaching her, blushing softly with a warm smile. "I came to properly thank you." Yuno steps forward, taking Capella's hands in her own. "Really, thank you so much today, Capella." Capella smiles back warmly. "Noif, it's for you, Yuno. It's totally fine." Suddenly, Yuno looks down, her expression turning slightly melancholic as she asks softly, "Do you like me?" Capella's face lights up with joy, hands clasped together in pure affection. "Of course, I love you, Yuno." Hearing that, a soft, relieved smile graces Yuno's face. "Thank you, Capella." Under the beautiful purple-tinted sunset sky, a carriage slowly drives down the dirt road, carrying Capella and her father back home. Sitting inside the carriage, Duke Castor folds his arms, looking at her seriously. "But I do still want to scold you for one thing. You definitely used Prince Oberon's a bit too freely." Then his expression softens as he vows, "No matter what happens, I'll help you." "Even if I lose my limbs or my voice," Duke Castor continues, his devotion absolute. "Even if I can no longer see you with my own two eyes. And even if it costs me my life," Duke Castor states with unwavering resolve, leaning in closer, "there's nothing in this world more important to me than you. Never, ever forget that, Capella." Capella is left completely wide-eyed, touched yet slightly overwhelmed by his intense declaration. Capella looks away, a shadow casting over her face as she wonders, even if I end up doing really bad things? Even if I do something the whole world would hate me for? "That's right," Duke Castor replies calmly. A soft, magical glow of white feathers surrounds him as he muses, "In fact, that would be a reward for me, wouldn't it? It'd mean I'd be the only one in this world who would love my lovely Capella, right? Wouldn't that be the best? Having Capella all to myself, away from the whole world, would be the best feeling ever?" Duke Castor boasts with a proud, obsessed grin. Capella, sweat dropping in chibi form, thinks, "This man, still as unshakable as ever. Seriously, what do I do with him?" Capella studies her father's face as he sits in deep thought. "I can't believe that he'd abandoned me for no reason before. Back then, there must have been some other reason." Deciding to break the tension, Capella smiles brightly. "It's been a while, but can I sit on your lap?" Duke Castor blinks, trying to maintain his cool demeanor. "Aren't you a bit big for that now?" But inside his mind, he is absolutely losing it, screaming, "You want to sit on Papa's lap? You really, really wanna?" Succumbing to her cuteness, the Duke pulls her onto his lap and gently pats her head, a soft, doting smile on his face. "What a handful of a daughter," he sighs. "What a sweet daughter she is." The next day, at Yuno's residence, her father-in-law walks out of her room, calling back, "Tomorrow's church, right? Don't overdo your studying." Holding a book tightly, Yuno smiles. "Thank you, father-in-law." As he walks away, Yuno hesitates, reaching out a hand. Father," Yuno murmurs. But as her father-in-law glances back with a sharp, intimidating glare, she immediately shrinks back with a nervous smile. It's nothing." Sitting at her desk and looking out the window, Yuno sighs to herself. "What on earth was I thinking?" She looks up, her eyes soft with gratitude. "It's all thanks to Capella that I ended up with a comfortable life way earlier than I was supposed to." A small blue bird perches on her windowsill, chirping softly. The biggest difference from last time is that blue bird, maybe? Yuno wonders. "Well, I'll figure that out later. Time to hit the books now." Looking at the practice booklets, she thinks, honestly, I don't even have anything new to learn. Looking at her gentle reflection in the glass, Yuno smiles warmly. Seriously, what a troublesome girl my best friend is. Back at the palace, Prince Oberon stares in utter disbelief at a paper in his hands, trembling. You still have room to grow? On the table lie their exam papers. Capella scored a miserable 20, while Oberon scored a decent 75. Oberon slumps down in deep depression. If things keep on going like this, will I really be able to attend the same school as Capella? Duke Castor gestures dismissively. Since you're the prince, I think you could still get into any school by pulling some strings. By pulling some strings? That's cheating, Oberon protests. Honestly, Capella could have gotten in too, the Duke thinks silently, prompting Capella to gasp in excitement. Really? Duke Castor gazes out the window, his eyes shadowed as a bluebird rests on his shoulder. But what's the point of Capella going through all that trouble to get into the academy? If she's just going to become the queen, an all-girls school would have been sufficient. She didn't need to go through all this just to stay by my side. There's no way I can be this much of a failure anymore, Oberon suddenly declares, crumbling his test paper with newfound resolve. Turning to the Duke, he shouts, Lord Axonon, please train me with everything you've got. Duke Castor and Capella simply stare at the prince with completely blank, unimpressed expressions. And so, the brutal training begins. Duke Castor drills Oberon relentlessly, lecturing him with a pointing stick, until 2 hours later, the poor prince is left completely collapsed and lifeless on the floor. Sitting stiffly in his chair with his soul practically leaving his body, Oberon looks at Capella. Capella, don't you ever get tired of studying all the time? Capella replies nonchalantly, Not really, I've gotten used to it. In her head, she adds, Besides, this is my second. I've actually been studying for the last 2 years. Capella remembers her harsh private tutor from her past life. I've even had a private tutor before. Looking at Oberon, she smiles sympathetically. Me too. Back then, I was pretty much like him. Meanwhile, Duke Castor takes off his glasses, suggesting, Your Majesty isn't used to sitting still for so long, right? For someone like you, it might be more effective to memorize things while moving. If you need a memory notebook, I can lend you mine. Oberon's eyes light up as he slams his hands on the desk. Wow, thank you. Grabbing the notebook, the energetic prince dashes out of the room. I'll be borrowing the center of the garden. Duke and Capella can only watch him run with bewildered faces. Down in the garden, Oberon swings his practice sword wildly while reciting his studies. The sixth queen was a beautiful woman who had shaken the entire kingdom. Swinging his sword with dramatic flair, he shouts, No harems were allowed, taxes increased, and the war that broke out back then was called the Harem War. Watching him from the balcony, Duke Castor deadpans, I can't believe you actually did it. Below them, Oberon waves his sword around, shouting up at Capella, I want to join too, but with you, Capella. Resting her chin on her hand, Capella watches him with a warm gaze. But even so, when His Majesty wields his sword, he truly does look amazing. Life's really unfair. He's so gallant, so kind. She imagines a sparkling image of a smiling, heroic Oberon, and his smile when he laughs is just too charming, too. But even so, down below, Oberon continues his swing. Next question. The eighth queen was known for her poetry, especially her love poems. Suddenly, Oberon freezes. Love? His sword slips from his grip, clattering loudly against the stone pavement as Capella and her father look on in confusion. Oberon stands frozen in the middle of the garden, hanging his head in absolute shock and silent panic. Is this really the right decision? Oberon mutters, before suddenly clutching his head and screaming at the top of his lungs. Should I break off my engagement with Capella? On the balcony, Capella and Duke Castor jump back in sheer shock. Capella's jaw drops as she mutters, while down below, a bright red Prince Oberon looks up at her, utterly mortified.